I wanted you to see the truth, but you never saw my point of view. You think I'm crazy, don't you? And you think my friends are crazy too. Won't you listen to me? I want you to see I'm dying to set you free. I know that you feel scared inside, but I swear I'll be right by your side. In darkness I will be your light. I'll be the one to hold you tonight. Won't you listen to me? I want you to see I'm dying to set you free. 'Cause when you open your eyes, you realize that there's so much more to be seen. Just give me some time to blow your mind. I want you to see what I see. I'll set you free from all those lies. You'll be amazed with your new eyes. There'll be no fear inside your mind. A deeper meaning you will find. Won't you listen to me? I want you to see I'm dying to set you free. 'Cause when you open your eyes, you realize that there's so much more to be seen. Just give me some time to blow your mind. I want you to see what I see. Give me your hand and hold on tight. I'll take you to a place so bright. Then you will finally understand the beauty of this wonderland. Won't you listen to me? I want you to see I'm dying to set you free. 'Cause when you open your eyes, you realize that there's so much more to be seen. Just give me some time to blow your mind. I want you to see what I see.
Namaste, everybody. Nacheketa here, coming in live from Louisiana. And today we have Ironwork 92,000, Vladimir, and we have Zetetic Warrior as well. Welcome to my show, Vladimir and Z. Good to see you as well. Let me give the mic over to Vladimir first. He wants to do a little bit of a shout out. Go ahead, take your time.
Hey, family. Thanks for having me. Thank you. Z, nice to meet you, man. Nice to meet you finally. Natch, much appreciated. Thanks for having me on tonight. Family, I just wanted to give everybody a welcome. Thanks for joining us tonight. Give a couple of shout outs to Ghost to Judah Tribe. Thanks for having me on here and helping me to do this. No Longer on the Ball. If anybody's familiar with No Longer on the Ball, he has the True Earth Wiki, which I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to post in here. Boom, right there. So we've got a lot of people in the community that are doing awesome things, great things, pushing us forward, and they're developing amazing tools. So as these guys come in and they're blessing us with their talents, I mean, use it while they're here. Another group, we've got Vika Drazif, of course, the creator of the Mechanical World. Shout out to Vik. Man, so many of you guys. PJ Cruikshank, Roger Ledwell, two amazing channels. Guys, get them while they're hot. And the Antiquity team. So we're putting together the Antiquity mechanism. Like I said, we're making things happen. We're not sitting by and doing BS like the Globe folks. And get in while it's hot. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to share that link with y'all right now. Boom. There it is. Boom. So that's the Antiquity team. Vika Drazif is spearheading that. And I'm part of an amazing team of just awesome folks, engineers, historians, you name it, and the like. And we making it happen. So thank you, Natch, for that. I appreciate you.
No worries. Thank you very much. Z, how are you doing today, man?
Pretty good, Notch. Glad to be here. Vlad, nice to meet you, man. And looking forward to a good stream, guys.
Yeah,
let's rock and roll.
All right. Great. So we are all gathered together today because we are all more or less flat earthers or level earthers. And we are kind of, well, we want to talk about the flat earth cosmology, right? So I think it's an important topic. Z thinks it's an important topic. And I think Vlad thinks it's an important topic. And, we kind of have heard about each other somewhere on the internet, the aether of things. And, we're all more or less going to be rubbing shoulders with each other if we go on that path of flat earth cosmology and pointing out and calling out all the lies that NASA has to offer and really all the academia and government and anybody else who is treading the line, whether or not you are a flat earther or maybe a globe earther or not. But if you are playing around with this game of, what is and what is not, then that needs to be called out for what it is. So where should we start, gentlemen? What's a good point to start with here? What say you guys?
God, where do we start, Notch? How about we start here? Maybe we just give a brief overview of how we got into the flat Earth topic, just briefly. I'll go
Sure.
first since I brought it up. So I first got into God, for lack of a better term, truth in 2004. I remember the first thing that kind of got me thinking that things might be not different than the way they're presented is I found out that Bin Laden was CIA trained. That was in 2004. And that just kicked off my whole journey because I said, whoa, they presented me with this 9/11 thing and I bought into it like many people did. And then 3 years later, somebody said to me, Bin Laden was trained by the CIA. I said, so I bought a book. I think the author's name was Richard Bergen. And that started my journey, before I was even into the internet, looking up research and things like that. And that led me down various trails. In 2015, the flat Earth topic was, presented to me through like YouTube, like most of us. And I got the information. It was like, we could see too far. Right. And I registered it, but that was it. I said, that's interesting. I didn't reject it right away, but I didn't have a way to reconcile that information with my paradigm, with my whole view of, the universe with ever expanding galaxies and, the solar system. And I'm like, how could the Earth be flat in this whole solar system? So it wasn't until 2017 where finally, after researching, really paying attention to the topic and putting the time in, I had a threshold moment where it kicked in and I realized, oh, I get it now. I have to really get rid of my paradigm. It's a whole different paradigm. I got to get rid of this idea of space, and we went to the moon and infinite galaxies and exoplanets and really look at it from a geocentric perspective where the Earth is the Earth and the heavens are the heavens. And that was in 2017. And that's pretty much where I would say I started basically to be called a flat earther. And here we are now. I've been streaming on my channel, Zetetic Warrior, for about 2 years now. It's been quite a journey. And I guess that's the basics. And look, brings us here tonight. I get to have this great stream with Nacheketa and Vlad here. So.
That's what's up.
Yeah. Do you want to go, Vlad, or I can go? I'll go
Natch.
first since you're the guest. So I'll keep it short. Basically, for me, I was already a kind of a conspiracy theorist for a long time. Like probably since 2004, I questioned the whole September event type of thing, and then got involved with like aliens and all that kind of stuff. And long story short, back when 2014, when I was in Nepal, I heard Obama's speech about like we don't have time to have a meeting with the Flat Earth Society. And I was just like, why the hell is he even talking about that? Why even mention about the Flat Earth Society at all? And then I used to own a bar back in Korea, and I had 3 board games of the Illuminati card game. And I used to like to go through all the card games, and I remembered about the Flat Earth card. The Flat Earthers know something. And so I started to, dig and look into Flat Earth on the internet, and I did find the Flat Earth Society. I found Matt Powerland to begin with, and then Eric Dubay. They were the first 2. Mark Sargent a little bit later on, and then I read like Robotham books, Parallax, like Earth Not a Globe and stuff like this. And then I became a flat earther, but I kept it to myself for the most part. I'm a little bit introverted. I didn't really get involved with the whole flat Earth scene until probably like 2019, after I kind of settled down and I got like Mandela affected and, got involved with Brian Stavely and his channel. And then I got introduced to all of these other flat earth channels. And then, rest is history. So that's basically the gist of my story.
All right. Okay. Yeah, man. I noticed a couple of parallels between Z and you is that a lot of it we believe the real ones out there. We go for the same bait. It's kind of like the aliens, the moon landing, 9/11 and all that, and then it kind of follows that same trend. So I'm much of the same camp as y'all. You know what I'm saying? Same thing. UFOs, aliens, 9/11, Osama bin Laden, and everything else. And then it wasn't until I met a somebody that I was actually he was I was mentoring this guy, right, when I was enlisted, and he, they specifically gave this individual to me because they thought he was a little bit too much for them to handle. And so he told me, he was like, "Hey, do you know that the earth is flat?" And I was like, "Oh shit, here we go." So so then I'm like, "Oh man, like, oh dang, like how do I handle this?" So then so he didn't seem like an idiot to me or anything like that. And we got along really well, and he's from New York, I'm from New York, so it was the chemistry was perfect, right? So the more he kept telling me about it, I was like, "Well, how do you say that, especially based on where it is we work?" Not even going to tell you where I was working at the time, but it was one of those things that we were doing, right? And so he was explaining everything to me, the same stuff that we hear. It doesn't curve, it doesn't move. And of course, I asked him the questions, the same typical stuff. Why would they lie? How do you know? How could you prove? And he explained everything to me. So his name is Christian. Christian, you're probably in here, right? And he's probably watching right now. And I'm very proud and I'm very happy that he showed me this way, because it was I was, I mentioned it at the time to my wife, and she looked at me like I was crazy, and she still to this day looks at me like I'm crazy. That's when I knew. That's when I knew that there was something to it. So then I did the research, and the more I started looking into it, the more I realized that I can't disprove this. And then I started thinking of my previous duties that I'd performed. I used to be a Navy diver. I used to be on submarines. I used to fly on airplanes while I was enlisted, right? All of which, these aren't jobs that you just get. Like, you have to totally qualify, and they have to kind of trust you with doing and working around this type of equipment, right? And so I did this for a while, and I did this rather well while I was doing it. And so I started noticing that while I was on submarines, I did realize there are periscopes. And on these and then when you have an opportunity to look in the periscope, when you can ask, or they request for you to do this based off of what it was I was doing at the time, you could see. And these aren't like, this isn't like an optical piece of equipment from lens crafters. This is some high grade stuff, super classified stuff. The intricacies of what it takes to make a periscope, a lot of people don't realize it's some really good equipment. So just looking down the pipe of a periscope, you can see objects on a clear, cold, crisp day for miles and miles and miles. Not even going to get into how many miles, but I could see ships for miles. But the way we could detect them in other ways, we could detect them a lot sooner, right? With other pieces of equipment. And so just putting that together and putting other things together with the duties that I'd been performing at that time, I realized, and I didn't want to say it out loud, I was like, holy smokes, the earth is flat. But then, you want to know something? I was scared. I was scared. I was scared to go out and admit that it was flat. I was afraid to tell people that I think it might be flat. I was even afraid to just mention it. So I was still in the camp of UFOs and everything else. And then it wasn't until around like probably month number 8 of realizing that the earth is truly what it is, right? Flat, level, and plane, that my buddy act talking bad about Chris. And they said, "Oh, he's an idiot. He thinks the earth is flat." I was like, I think he's right. It was crazy because a lot of, I think I froze up.
Yeah, you're glitching out a little bit.
Yeah, but here I am, right, saying this to these people that not only am I, I'm mentoring, I'm leading at the same time. And I'm like, I think he's right. And so people were looking at me crazy. And then that was the beginning of, like, when I woke up, it was kind of like you, Z. It was like that, it snapped. It was that come to Jesus moment. That's when I realized everything that I was taught was utter BS. It was a total lie. And it's like now, and I was, it was a weird time, because I was in between a place of being pissed that I'm being lied to, but being relieved that I'm like, okay, great, I'm 40 years old, but I've got my whole life. I hope I've got my whole life to kind of try and figure this whole thing out. I still have some time, but I was like, but God damn it, they took so much of my time. And I was led to believe A, B, and C for such a long time. Why? But then I was like, all right, enough crying about it. What am I going to do about it? So after, a divorce and everything else and a crazy path, I mean, I'm living the dream. I'm not going to lie to you, man. This is the time of my life right now. And no matter how difficult it gets, no matter how crazy it could seem with the world and everything else, um, I'm actually enjoying this journey. So here it is. That's what it is.
Yeah. Well, we are where we are at, and we got to just start with where we are at. Whatever that has happened in the past has happened, and it brought us to this moment. And we are still on the way towards discovery. We have not arrived to absolute understanding of how this reality works. That's not the position that I am in. And it's good to be humbling. It's a humbling thing to understand that this world is very vast, and there's a lot of shenanigans going on, and there are a lot of stuff that we really do not comprehend. But we have scratched the surface. Let's just say we have scratched the surface on a layer or maybe two. I'm not sure. And then we understand that there's something going on out there that doesn't match the official narrative of what they have offered to us over the years. So
Yeah.
Do you mind if I ask? Because it was like this in my life. Did the flat Earth topic, impact your relationship? Maybe I should say this. You mentioned you were divorced. Did that play a part in it, or not even just a flat Earth thing? Just your ability to think outside the box, so countercultural, so away from consensus. Do you think? Because here's what I've noticed: is women in general, and not all, tend to go along with consent. Don't the women in here already know the way I am, so this will be very this will be normal for most of the ladies in here who know me, but they tend to be more, in my mind, go along with the crowd. I think it's like I think it's like their programming, in a sense, just to say, why are you gonna rock the boat? Why do you have to be so countercultural? Why do you have to go against society? I think there's a hard wiring they have to reject that. And I know that was a part of my life. That's why I wanted to ask you, because I also, as I was going through my, for lack of a better term, awakening, I went through divorce too. So I was just wondering if you had a similar experience.
Oh, I sure did. Conspiracy was, one of my love languages is conspiracy, right? That's like the sixth love language of the five. So just discussing that with my ex-wife at the time, she'd look at me like I had five heads. She didn't understand. And I guess towards the end of our relationship is when the cocoa came out. So you know what it is I'm talking about, right? So while this was coming out, I started to notice some parallels, which I guess we could discuss later on. And I was explaining this to her. And
it was the same thing with me. I don't want to cut you off. That's the same thing. That was the nail in the coffin in my relationship too, because it was a defining point. It was a fulcrum point where the issues were brought to a head around this one topic, and where you stood on that topic was a very strong indicator into your mindset. So I didn't want to cut you off, but the exact same thing happened to me.
No. It's okay, because it was around April of 2020. I remember it was April 20th of 2020, and we got some foul news. One of my ex-wife's nephew, he took his own what. So that was some crappy news, but it was during that time where this was going on. So we had a lot going on, and she, at that point, she was done. I was trying to talk to her about it. She wasn't trying to hear it. And then I said, listen, they're probably going to try and make us do some stuff that we don't want to do. So be ready for it. And then since she's been hearing me talk about how the earth is possibly, flat, and this crazy thing that everybody's saying, hey, first sign of cocoa shot that they give out, I'm getting it, right? I'm like the only one out in the street. I'm the only one not wearing his mask. And I'm like one of the only ones that's saying, hey, if they try to do something, I ain't getting that shit. You know what I'm saying? At that point, she was like, why wouldn't you do that? Why do you want to kill grandma? This, that, the third. And then she was done. She checked out. And then I said, hey, listen, you could get it, you could do whatever the hell you want, but I don't want my little girl getting it. You know what I'm saying? So at least I could, at the very least, I could say she's been good in that regard, to where my little girl didn't have to put up with that nonsense. I thank God for that. But as far as me and her are concerned, like we were going in two different directions at that point, right? And my thing is I'm good with it, because she could find a dude that if they want to live in a Twilight Zone and the Matrix and all that, that's for them, man. That ain't for me, right? There are a lot of ladies out there and a lot of dudes, not just ladies, but dudes as well, that their mind isn't ready. And it's hard and it's a tough pill to swallow, especially when they're in your life. But if their mind, then it's not ready. But if they support you, then that's cool. And maybe one day their mind will be ready. But if it's not ready, if they're not ready for this kind of news, this kind of information, I was happy that we moved on from the relationship, and that I'm better off alone, knowing what I know and doing what I can do, than with somebody that's going to give me hell because I see the world for what it is and they don't. So.
Yep, ain't they? That is the truth of things, you know. I mean, like we gotta make our beds and sleep on it. I mean, we gotta have our values and we gotta live by them. And you know, it is what it is, unfortunately. And that's just true with significant others or with friends, so-called friends. Friends also have to have more or less similar values with each other. And there is a kind of a line that I do draw, and you know, getting the jabby is one of those lines for me. I mean, like I'm okay if you made that decision, but I'm going to keep you at an arm's distance for like physical and emotional, psychological reasons. But I may not completely burn that bridge down depending on the situation. But you know, this is an IQ test as far as I'm concerned. You know, I mean, this is like where are you at? You know, in terms of like how you perceive this reality, and you have no freaking idea what you have just put in your body. We got issues. You know.
Yep. And you want to know it, like a thing that I notice is that every time they, like, these movies, I think are a great measuring stick, right? Because a lot of times, especially in the 80s, we would see the movies where it was clear cut and dry, which you knew who the antagonist and the protagonist was in a movie. These days, they blur the lines like a mug. You don't know who's bad or who's good. And it's up for debate as to who the bad guy and the good guy is, a la Black Panther and Transformers 1 that just recently came out, right? But folks these days are like, they seem to think that they can take the characteristic of the good guy that's there to do the stuff that's always just, that's always right. Basically, the things that are hard when ain't nobody looking. You know what I'm saying? Everybody wants to relate with that guy, when in reality, the majority of people relate with the fucking cowards. I'm sorry to say. I hate to have to say it like that, but the vast, and I'm starting to, let me breathe a little bit. But the vast majority of people, it's as if they relate with the coward or they relate with the bad guy, because it's like the pressure's on, money is on the line, and it's like, I have to make a decision and I don't have any time, so this is what I'm going to do, because it's comfort. People don't realize how comfortable they are until they're put in the situation of being uncomfortable, to where now it's like, yeah, I'm going to do this just this one time, so it's okay. Nobody's really going to notice. Everybody else is doing it anyway, so I'm good. But then I'm like, push comes to shove, man. You don't have the balls for it. And well, you may not have another opportunity. You may not have another opportunity to save your own life or to save the life of your family, and you just fucked up. Congratulations, you just fucked up.
Some things you can't take back, you know. So, oh man, we can go a million places with this, but one thing that came to mind is, you know, I agree with you. Obviously, there's the social engineering, you know, there's the brainwashing, the conditioning of mass media culture and all different forms, right? But to me, a lot of it really comes down to the really the loss of a concept of a higher being, just God, call it, right? So what is the, you know, the underlying beliefs of most people, even if it's an unconsciously held belief, is that we evolved over billions of years from basically inanimate matter to a single celled amoeba into the complex, organisms that we are today. And that again, we live in this like infinite universe and these ever expanding galaxies, and and we're moving in all these directions. And so there's an underlying lens that we as a culture unconsciously hold. And that belief set, whether it's known to us or not, really guides how we function in this world, our thoughts, our behaviors, our actions, and otherwise. So they've basically conditioned out an understanding of the spiritual, the conscious, the mystical. And we live in this pseudoscientific world of matter where everything is explained in the material, in the physical. So where is there room for morals, ethics, values, and principles? Once you're in the world that they created and you're in that mindset, the idea of right and wrong become subjective to the whims of society, and they become mere convention.
Yes.
So now we have this, materialistic, subjective world that we're living in that's become normal. So people like any of us here who count ourselves as maybe conscious individuals, we then become, like they said about your friend in the army, we're the crazy ones, just because we're different, because we are so atypical. But in reality, we're the ones holding the torch for the morals, the ethics, and the values, because we still have an idea of the conscious nature of reality. We haven't just boiled it down to mere particles that sort of are interacting in some random happenstance. So that's, to me, the fulcrum point, is this idea of they've destroyed a concept of God, creator, source. And they basically brought us into this secular world where now we see what we see in society. This is where we are. That's kind of the way I'm looking at things.
No, I totally, man, like you've hit so many damn high notes. And I feel that because we are so entrenched with everything that's physical, our mind is immersed in a place of chaos, right? Like people don't understand that, like this is a beautiful world. Whether you want to look at it, whether you've got your problems and stuff, like it's it's crazy, and it's interesting, right? But at the same time, there is an order to this world. Everything has symmetry, and it has some kind of order. That is without order, like you have to question. You got to question. I mean, of course, question everything. But it's because I feel just like what you said, but in my own kind of sense, that because we see so much physically, we forget that there's a lot more to it. Like I've got this bag of freaking of damn pumpkin seeds, right? Like, can you, like, there's a bag of plastic. Do you know how to make a bag of plastic? Do you know how to make a bag of plastic? Like, it's crazy how the mind works. And I just think that there is a spirit being in everyone and everything. And just the person that came up with the concept of creating a plastic bag is something to wonder at. But I think people are so far removed from just life in general that they think, oh, we're just a bunch of globs and we're matter. And here's the thing. This is part of why understanding where we live is so important, because they're going to make you think that these objects in the sky are objects. They're physical. You can hold on to them. Gas, objects. Oh, this one has diamonds on it. This one's got dogs that can talk on it. This one's got... Listen, there is this app that I have that lets you look at the stars and the skies and everything else like that, and it gives you the skies above in your head. They had Cybertron. I don't know if you're familiar with Transformers, but they had Cybertron as one of the stars. And I'm like, what are we doing? You know what I'm saying? So everything that we can't touch, the sun and the moon and everything, they're calling them objects. And so once we give everything a name and we make it palpable to where it's not a spirit or it's not a sonoluminescence of some sort, we think we have the answers. So now we've run out of options. And so because we think we have all the answers, we think, oh, well, this is it. This is it. I could F off and I could die. It is what it is. And so it makes room for disappointment, and it makes room for depression in a lot of people, I feel.
Oh
but
yeah.
but I don't know where your mind was or how you were feeling. But how did you feel after you learned of once it worked for you, once you had your come to Jesus moment? How did you feel? How did it feel like to know that, oh my God, like this is not what I thought. It's different. I have options. It's not what I thought. How'd you feel? Tell me.
Well, for me, it's a mixed bag. Overall, I would never go back. Like, I've often asked myself and even my audience, like, would you go back? It's almost like Cyrus in the Matrix. When he chose to go back, he knew the stake was fake, but he chose the Matrix anyway because he couldn't take the real world. Because once you leave the Matrix, all of a sudden you're eating mush and your clothes have holes in them and you stink, right? But you're in the real world. And the real world has consequences, right? The real world isn't a fantasy world, like the world that they're presenting through us, through their puppet show of media and the circus of government and academia and all that stuff. So there's the reality, and I don't think many people can handle it. But for me personally, I had, again, like a paradigm shift. So when it comes to the flat Earth topic specifically, mine was when I realized we can't be orbiting and rotating. That's when I had my moment. I said that there's no way we're orbiting the sun. That's crazy, because they say the analemma, if you look at it, the way they explain the asymmetry of the analemma during the year is that there's an elliptical orbit around the sun. Okay. Once I realized that, okay, if we're in an ellipse, that necessitates an acceleration and a deceleration.
Yes.
Because then the relativity goes away. Then you can't just say, well, if you're in a train moving, do you feel it? Or if you're going down, no. Yeah, well, you don't feel it if you're constant. But if you start speeding up and slowing down and turning, well, sure, you're damn well going to feel it. Once I realized that there's no way we could be in an orbiting ellipse, that was the moment everything just made sense to me. And, slowly in steps, my life changed after that in so many ways. And I think, like anything, there's like stages that you go through, because again, your worldly, once you start to reject the programming will reject you, and then it becomes a feedback loop. So to me, it's like an energy thing. Like, I can't see, like, my energy, I can't be with the system because the energies are not jiving.
They're not aligned. Yeah, they're not aligned.
So
yeah.
so my energy is going to vibrate away from that and towards other things, and I can't help that. There's nothing I could do about that at this point, So there's some of it is the sadness and the loss of some of the conventional things, the things that maybe you miss. Like, all of a sudden, I had to reconcile where there was years where I couldn't watch like a movie about space. I couldn't watch, like, say, Star Trek or Star Wars, anything, and everything's about space. But I'm to a point now, all these years later, where I could sit down, I could watch a movie just to watch it, maybe see what's the message, what are they presenting to the public, or even just to enjoy the movie without getting tripped up on, because I used to have that, like, almost like an internal, like, reaction when I'd be like, look what they're doing. They're indoctrinating us with the Star Wars and, gravity and planets and the way they, they're coming into different planets and things. And, there was that, but I'm over that point now, I'm past that, but that was years and years where I was almost in like like a state of anger, so I think a lot of it was going through the stages of almost grief, because you're losing something at that point, but you're gaining so much more, because what is it, what does a man gain to sell his soul? You know what I mean? So, like, if you sell your soul to gain the world, what did you gain? Nothing. You lost your soul for the world. So it's the same kind of thing. So if you value, yourself as a conscious being, as a mental being, a being that exists in multiple energetic realities simultaneously, at least that's the way I look at my existence. I see reality in much the same way as it's explained by, many of the secret schools, whether it's the Hermetists, the Egyptians, even some of the, the mystery schools and some of their foundational teachings. I see a reality in that manner, a reality that's, again, vibrational, energetic, and exist in multiple different, let's say, frequencies. So I look at the world like that, man, and from that, I have a greater sense of, let's say, internal fulfillment. But I'm to a point now where that's starting to express itself in the world, where I'm adjusting. I'm like finding my sea legs with my new consciousness that have come into it. I'm sure many people here can probably relate to that. So for me, it's like a process. And man, that's ups and downs, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, but still progression, So
Yes.
that's kind of where I am with the whole thing. And but it's an adjustment, man, because again, it's because you can't reconcile the world that they indoctrinated us with the actual world that's demonstrable and that could be shown practically. Those two things don't go together. So you can't have an understanding of, let's say, hashtag science, where they teach you the periodic table, electrons, protons, neutrons, strong and weak nuclear forces, things like gravity. They tell us there's 4 forces, but really electromagnetism is the only force that could be demonstrated. So how can you reconcile the fact that only 1 force could be shown, but they're telling us there's 4? How can you reconcile the fact, the idea where you go, look, how could somebody go to the moon and walk on it, but yet they're telling us we went to the moon and we walked on it, and we're going back. So it really is a paradigm shift, man. And to think that there's not emotional consequences from that, I think would be foolish, or so I think it's a process. So anybody listening to us right now, wherever you may be on that process, just realize that it's something you have to work through. You're not crazy. Okay. You are, experiencing a world that's different than the one you've been indoctrinated with. And there's consequences to that. So, and I think it's another reason why communities like these, conversations like these are important, even though they're tough. It's tough to come on here and be open about the things that we understand, that we accept about this world. Because again, there's always consequences, man, and not just online. Sometimes those consequences manifest in real life. And it doesn't mean we're like, heroes for doing this, but it takes a degree of courage to come on here and be vulnerable and present yourself in a way that opens you up to ridicule. So that was my long answer to your question, man, is that ups and downs, but a progression forward. And I would never choose to go back. And I don't think I could at this point.
Oh, brother, I'm right up there with you, man. And I mean, it's good that we have the audience that we have. And shout out to the audience and everybody else in the house, because it's kind of like when they back up what it is that we're saying, it's like, okay, what I'm saying isn't falling on deaf ears. They understand. Every once in a while, I have a couple of guys that come in there, they troll, they talk crap and everything else like that. And I'm like, at first I used to get upset, right? And there he is. I am Wilson. Play nice. You and Professor Phil, y'all could talk, but play nice, okay? So they're in there, and those are my 2 hecklers. Like they're like the guys on the Muppet Show, them 2 old guys up in the balcony. Remember that? Right? That's them.
I always think about that, man. I always think about that because, like, when I'm on it, I'm picturing people throwing banana peels at me and stuff, and and it's like, but you're still going. And you know what? Look, they're part of the audience too. This is an open platform, so
yes,
it's the way it is.
Yeah, and so my thing is, I don't want to steal that energy. We'll trade barbs, we'll go back and forth, but my thing is, I want to make it fair. You know what I'm saying? I want to give them a chance to let it be known that, hey, we're here. We hear what you're saying. We think it's crap, and this is what we think. Like, get your voice out there so we could challenge one another. That's what we're here for. We know we're right. That's the difference. So whatever it is you have to present to us ain't gonna shock us in the slightest.
Right.
But we're not gonna be pig-headed enough to be like, you're stupid, this and that. Like, give us your best, and then we'll give you the truth. And then it's up to you to do with it as you will. But once we give you the truth, you can't. And of course, and this is where we segue into the topic at hand, right? Because once we give you the truth, once you have the truth, and everybody around us understands this is the truth, this is solid, you have a decision to make. Now, it's either you fall in line with what the truth is, or you could now go on and you could continue with your BS. We have those in the camp, right? That I'm trying not to get mad, We have those within the camp that know what the truth is. But now it seems as other things are starting to influence how they're thinking, or that's how it appears. That's how it appears. And of course, Z, you know more than me. Natch, you know more than me, right? A lot more than me. But the thing is I could sense your frustration, Z, and Natch, I could sense your inquiry behind the whole thing. And now it's starting to boil into a frustration because I'm getting a mixture of both of those. And I didn't have to deal with the person in question like you did, Z. But when you did, like, you took the time. And my thing is, I'm not even in your shoes. I don't even think I could get to my audience how frustrated and how pissed you were just listening. You were like, I took this much time to break this whole effing show down. And I'm like, damn, he took that much time to break the show down. You know, and little by little, you explained the show that he had with Bro Sanchez. And I love Bro Sanchez's show, right? And just you breaking it down, I'm like, you know, the dude is pissed and frustrated, but you're clear of mind because you did it in a systematic fashion. And so a lot of people are, you know, they're coming out and they got upset with how you did it. But I'm like, no, I said, no. This is what we need. This is a good thing, because what separates us from those of the globe is that the globe, everything bad that we mentioned with the lies, the cocoa, and then there's here things that I'm going to mention that we haven't mentioned yet. You've got the silos that have been burning down. You've got those heads of cattle that have been just dying at random. You've got all those chickens in Illinois and Wisconsin that just burned up for whatever the hell reason. So a lot of things are being destroyed and controlled. And it seems to fall in line with a group of people that are deceitful, that are lying, and that want to just hide things from us and just keep us from being our better selves. And anytime I see those globe folks, they fall in line with that type of thinking and with those types of people. The only difference is they don't know what the hell they're doing. Those people know what the truth is. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But when I see I'm going to call him one of our own, just shift and do this to us, because Natch, you went ahead. I have, excuse me for glitching out. It's not an Ironworks production unless I glitch out.
You know what it is? If you start moving, because mine does that sometimes. If you move too much,
right,
it'll start glitching.
Okay, let me just robot myself up. Okay, I'll keep like a statue. So with the video that you sent me, Natch, these are the times: 9:40, 17 minutes, and 20 minutes and 44 seconds specifically, where there are times where Will Duffy, because we're going to talk about Will for a second, where Will Duffy's like, oh, you know, Jaren's not a bad dude. He's not a bad dude. He's actually one of the more level-headed of the flat earthers. And I'm like,
right, because he agrees with them. Because he agrees with where they are.
Yeah, I'm like, really? So he's level-headed, so we're full of shit. That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
So we're liars. So everything we're saying is lies. And then you got all these people in, I'm not even going to name his damn channel, but you know who it is. You got everybody in his camp saying, yeah, he's one of the better ones. I actually like him. You know, he's got his own line of clothing, and just all the crap that you don't want to hear, right? But then he says he says that at 9:40. I don't know why they're getting.
We can watch.
Yeah,
we can watch the video. We can, so we can go.
Yeah, why don't you pull it up to the highlight? And I just wanted to address a few things that you said regarding me and Mr. Jaren Campanella. Firstly, Vlad, I was brought into this. Now, Jaren and I interviewed him on my show one time. Okay, that was the limit of me ever talking to him, and then we exchanged through a mutual friend cell phone numbers. So there was a few texts back and forth, maybe months. This is months and months ago, man. Mm-hmm. Almost a year at this point, probably. And you can find it on my channel. You can just go to my channel under my Flat Earth playlist, and what's my Level Earth playlist list now, and you just look for Jaren and you'll find it. So that was my experience with Jaren. But obviously everybody knows Jaren if you've been around the community. He brought me into this. I was on Notch's show. Notch asked me a very simple question regarding the final experiment. I gave a very diplomatic answer, but I was honest. I woke up the next day. No, it was the following day, 2 days later, and Jaron had done a 5-hour stream about me entitled, Are You Really Zetetic, right? And he was just going on saying a bunch of nonsense. So right then, we were then engaged, because he decided to make an issue out of it because everybody's talking about the final experiment, but he had to make me the focal point, which I have my theories on why he did that. So after that, I said, okay, well, why don't you and I talk? So that's when he brought me on his show. And if you remember from the video that you referenced of mine, I had some clips in there where we had our debate, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And that's what kicked it off there, and he was on Bro Sanchez the day before. So it's not like I just decided to make myself like the lightning rod of this whole topic. It's just for whatever reason, the way the stars aligned, I was brought into it. And I'm the type of person where I'm not going to step back, because I know where I stand. I know what I accept about this reality. And I know what my thoughts regarding Jaron are. And I'm not the type of person to shy away from that. So that's kind of how we went into this. And that's what led me to finally go through all of his recent content and say, what is he really saying? So if I'm going to be out here having conversations like this, I want to know what he's really saying, not just here and there. And that's when I really did a deep dive into his content. And that's when I really started seeing what's going on with Jaron, in my opinion, where I actually think he's ready to do his globe flip and sell us all out, which Simon Dan, or this guy we're looking at, agrees with me because he thinks Jaron's going to flip to the globe. Jaron's, to reference what you said, Jaron is being embraced by the globe community over and over again. They're coming to my channel. They're big up in Jaron. They're all saying how reasonable he is. Well, it's because he's a globie. He's talking just like a globie at this point. Now, I have my theories, and I'll give it now, then we could play this. Some people want to say the easy thing. Jaron's a Jesuit. He was a plant from the beginning. I find that hard to believe, although I don't rule that out. My take on Jaron is, how you and I just talked about how we had to come to an understanding of a new paradigm where we embraced consciousness and spirituality, and we really incorporated that into our beingness to understand what this reality. I don't think Jaron ever did that. See? And judging by the words, the things that he's said through the years regarding spirituality and a different type of spiritual doctrine, I think he evidences that, is that he never really left his globy mindset behind. So that's why I think he was so intent on building a model and intellectualizing a model in his arrogant mind. Now that he built the model, and the model's threatened, my theory is he's too egoic and arrogant to simply say, maybe I was wrong for 5 years. Maybe it was wrong of me to reject people like Jake the Asshole and Q and Fee, who years and years and years ago pointed out the flaws in the model, whatever you want to think about it. Maybe I was a gatekeeper. Maybe I'm self-interested. See, I think somebody like Jaron is so egotistical that he would just rather say, okay, well, like you said earlier, he knows how periscopes work. I've heard Jaron explain, the properties of the level horizontal topographical plane of this earth multiple times. The fact that he's saying the things that he's saying now, that's the fishy part. Because it's not like he forgot all those things to say the simplistic things that he's saying now. And that's what I think the duplicitous part about Jaron is. And that's why I'm so vocal about calling him out, is because I think he's doing this for a self-interested reason. Because just like you said, once the Globies embrace him, which they will, his financial situation changes basically overnight. Because if you look at this video that Notch is about to play, the man whose channel, the Simon Dan, has hundreds of thousands of subscribers. This video is on its way to 100,000 views. I'm sure he's got a bunch of channel members. Every anti-flat earther that comes on that we could name, whether it's Fight the Flat Earth, Simon Dan, Dave McKeegan,
Don't give them
and
power. Don't give those guys. We know
yeah,
who they are. Don't
yeah,
give them the
on and
power.
on and on. They all make a significant financial windfall from their endeavor here, where there are maybe 1 or 2 or 3 flat earthers that can eke out a living doing this. And Jaron's the primary example of this. So that's my opinion on the matter, and I can go way into it like I have. If anybody wants to know more about my feelings on it, just go to my channel. Somebody will put the link in for you, okay? And just go to my videos, and you'll hear everything I need to say about it.
Yeah. Damn, man. Yeah, because listening to that, I know you want to get into it, Natch, but I just want to say, man, just listening to that thing was deep. And then just hearing how, because Bro Sanchez, like I mentioned to the family earlier this last week, when I saw him lose composure, when he was like, "Oh my God, you sound like a Glober." When he said that, I was like, "It's a wrap." And then Bro Sanchez was like, "I don't know, Jaren, but right now you kind of sound like a shield to me, and that's what it is. And so we just going to keep it moving from here." You know what I'm saying? So when I heard Bro Sanchez say that, I was like, he said it matter of factly. Bro Sanchez he didn't pussyfoot. He didn't, well, maybe, Jaren, you're just not seeing it. And then it's not, no, you a shield. And
Right.
we're going to treat you as such from this point on. That's
Until he
what
comes
it is.
correct.
Yes.
And unless he comes correct. And he's going to have to come correct real strong, you know. And this goes to all the apologists out there, which are the real ones that I want to hear my words and why I keep coming on talking about this. To the apologists, you're digging yourself deeper and deeper. Look, maybe the 3 of us here are just maybe a little bit more in touch with our discernment, or maybe we're a little bit more emotionally disconnected than some of his hangers on. Maybe they just need more time. But there's some big name people right now that, to me, are going to have to really, I put it this way. They're under scrutiny in my book. Okay. For whatever that matters, it matters to me, but they're under scrutiny right now. And again, we don't have to mention names, but they're the ones at this point that really have to make a decision about how they're going to behave moving forward, because I suspect that there's people that are still engaging with him and his channel that understand the things that we're saying, but maybe don't have the courage at this point, or the emotional fortitude to make the move, to come out, to say something, or just to distance themselves. But anybody, if your allegiance with Jaren at this point, make no mistake about it, he has nowhere to go from here. Unless he sees that sunset, he's not a flat earther anymore. He's made that very, very, very clear. So there's not many options. So it's going to be sooner or later. And look, you're looking clownish at this point, which is fine. Look, everybody plays the fool sometimes. But what side do you want to be on when the dust settles? You know, do you want it? Because your word and your reputation is all you have in this life. And it's especially all you have here online. There's nothing else besides your words, your energy, and your presentation. So where are we going to go here? What are you in this for? Look, none of us are going to be rich doing this. And if you're going to get rich talking truth, it's going to take years and years and years to become like a Bro Sanchez who can come on here, actually speak truth, and actually have enough people that could probably give him a livelihood. Other than that, this is not going to be a get rich quick overnight. As smart as you may be, and as intellectual and as, you know, the glowing personalities you may have, you're not going to come on here and get rich with the truth. And if you are, it's going to take you a long time. So what are you in this for? What are your motives? And how do you want to be remembered at this point? And I can tell you with me, and I know with Nach, and I can only imagine with Vlad, is I'll speak for myself. I'm not going to forget the people where you were when this went down, this monumental time in this community's history, which is the biggest time in FE since it first popped online in 2015. There's been no bigger time than right now, because as we're about to see in this video, if Notch plays the part, Will Duffy and the Globers especially are looking to make this a big deal in the worldwide media. Don't think this is just in our little cubicle, everybody. And I think the three of us here are seeing this maybe a little bit sooner than the rest of the people. We know the impact of this. This is going to be way bigger than Behind the Curve. If they drag Jaren and Austin down there, first of all, they're not going to let them see the setting sun. They're just not going to let them do it. So again, what are the options here? This is going to go worldwide when this happens. All right. They're going to do everything they can to discredit the flat earth community. It doesn't discredit the earth is what it is. That's not going to change. But people's perception, people's ability to come to this truth is going to be severely impaired by this mockumentary that they're all planning. And that's the part that makes me so passionate about what Jaren's doing. When it comes to Witsit, I've made my feelings known about it, okay? I don't have to say it again here. I'm cutting Witsit a little bit more slack. One, because of his youth. And two, because of his, for whatever reason, his allegiance to Jaren. But that slack's going to get shorter and shorter and shorter. And say what you want. Y'all have big numbers. The three people you see up here, we're just getting started. And I've been saying this for a while. I'm just getting warmed up. So this is a long game, everybody. So just think about where you want to be when the dust settles in this whole thing. All right, that's my diatribe.
Yep. And Natch, I would love to add on to that, but man, you said you hit the nail right on your head, and I don't want to keep you from playing the. I definitely
go ahead.
want to keep you. Oh well, you know, just seeing Will Duffy with TFE and the final experiment. This is how you know they're getting in everybody's mind. Be ready, because this is going to drop as soon as it happens. Soon as it happens, it's going to be a Netflix special. The Final Experiments, memoirs of the Final Experiment. This one and that one. They probably got stickers, coasters, beer mugs, coffee mugs, baby bibs, you name it. All the swag named after this movie. They're getting in people's minds. Look at, hey, we're getting ready to present to you how foolish these flat earthers are. And with all their bravado and their confidence, and Will Duffy, you know, I had a friend of mine today. Get online, look up Will Duffy. He scrubbed the entire internet damn near. My man's supposed to be a Forbes 500, a Fortune 500, whatever that thing is, a F500 personnel. You can't find that no more. But somehow they managed to find it. You know what I'm saying? Why, if you're of the truth and you're doing all these things to back up the truth, why do you have to remove this? Number one. Number two, you're a pastor. You're this, you're that. You're all this and you're all that, but you don't understand how Genesis works. You don't, like, after everything we said in the flat earth, everything we said, and you don't have to believe in the Bible, but at least if you don't believe in the Bible, but you read the story, you know what the story entails and how it follows and how it flows. So you claiming to be a pastor, that basically his pastorship got passed down like it was a matrix of leadership, right? And I find that to be sketchy all in itself, but that's a whole nother story. You mean to tell me you're going to call the firmament the crust of the earth? Really? What's that? What's that all about? Like, how many more lies do we have to put up with from a, you know what? I'm going to get mad. Natch, if you want to play the clip, please, by all means, go ahead, do what you do, bro.
All right, let's play the clip.
Yeah.
I've always thought of him like that. Like, you know, there's a lot of flat earthers out there who are ethically not nice people. Jaren has always come across, although he's had his dig every now and again at me for things and stuff, which is fine, but I've always considered him to be someone who wouldn't be like that, you know. And in his defense, he's stuck up for the right thing there, isn't he?
Yeah, he's also he also deserves credit for being the one who has defended the globe model the best through this whole final experiment, and also explained why this doesn't work on a flat earth. So he's been the most consistently honest about the position he's held this entire time, now that we're actually going to go to Antarctica.
Yeah, absolutely. There are, I mean, if I was to play devil's advocate, there are some people who would say that because of his previous dealings with certain large documentaries and figuring out things in that he might already have an inkling that something isn't right with flat earth. But obviously some people
hold on a second, if you don't mind, Notch. Oh, here's the thing. If Jaron already had an inkling that something was wrong with Flat Earth, why didn't he say it when he had the inkling? Why didn't he say it years ago if that was the case? You know, that documentary Behind the Curve came out many, many years ago at this point now. So it's a long time. All right. Why now? That's the question. You know, if they're correct, which we don't know if they're correct, we're not in Jaron's mind. We can't know what Jaron's actually thinking. But if what he just said is correct, then it just shows Jaron's a show right there, obviously. You know, at least you can give him the benefit of the doubt if he was on the fence now and if he's really truly buying into this false binary, because that's all they're saying here. They're saying Jaron is buying into our false dichotomy final experiment. He appears to be the only flat earther who's doing so, which again, such a coincidence that he's one of the two guys, one of the three people that's going. He's the only flat earther I heard take his position. Now, there might be people behind the scenes that actually think that a 24-hour sun could somehow make oceans curve, like Jaron said multiple times. But I have yet to find another flat earther to buy into the false binary besides Jaron. So, yeah, of course they're going to be praising him now because he's buying in to this completely, false choice that's being presented. So, yeah, of course they're going to praise him.
Oh, yeah. And it sucks because, man, and it's easy. I could see exactly what you were saying earlier, touching on that, the loyalty that a lot of people have with Jaron, right? And his channel, and just being able to make it to, I guess when he has his speakers corner on those Thursdays, the first Thursday of the month or something like that, where people get to call in and he has his favorites. They've already established a close relationship with him. And I get it, man. Sometimes you get close with people. Sometimes you get loyal. But what are you going to be more loyal to? The truth, integrity, or just somebody that, and I'm not gonna just discount somebody's relationship with a person. I don't know how close and how strong that bond is. I'll never know. But think, you got to think, because now what you mentioned, where Jaron is starting to turn coat, those people that he's loyal with, they just might follow him into the lake of fire like he's the Pied Piper. You know what I'm saying? And so they're like, well, maybe he might have a point. As a Home Depot flat Earth don't seem like such a bad idea after all. And I'm like, are you guys out of your mind? And this is how deep it goes. And this is why I got so frustrated. And this is why I was also like, Jaron, listen, you like to talk shit about Leo, and I got on his show. I had Run Boston Bear pay a little bit of money, and shout out to Run Boston Bear. And I know a lot of people have, shout out to him, because he, just to get, Jaron, talk with Eric Dubé. Jaron, talk with Level Earth Observer. Jaron, talk with Flat Earth Banjo, because those were his top 3 dudes he was talking so much shit about. And I have a problem with that, because I'm like, yo. These are dudes that have not only a substantial channel and a following, but they also bring something of quality to the community, right? And so far, I haven't seen them slip yet. So there's a level of consistency in their work as well. We have to keep keep that in mind, because now when you compare that to what Jaron is doing now, you're like, there is an inconsistency there. And so this is what we're harping on. So it's like, all right, Jaron, because everybody's shitting on him and shitting on his name. I'm like, look, this is your opportunity to talk with these dudes. Yo, be the example. Don't be like everybody else. And this is why I take pride in being part of the True Earth, Flat Earth community, because I feel we're of the same mind, right? If we see a strike, we call it, right? And we're of the truth. But if we disagree, we find a way to come to the table to discuss it with one another and talk like men to see where is it that we agree, where is it that we disagree, and just keep it moving. But we could still be respectful to one another. We could still be cordial. Right now, with what he's doing, or rather what he's not doing, he's burning bridges and he's setting a bad example. So here's the thing that I have to a lot of my viewers as well that don't agree with how I'm making this approach, with how I'm talking about this guy. You have to understand, I don't have a problem with Jaron. I have a problem with what Jaron is doing within the community. I have a problem with Jaron discussing what he's discussing in such a fashion that he's burning bridges with with people in the community. There's other issues that I'm not even going to talk about that maybe you want to address. Z, I don't even want to go there with it. That
Well, look, I've talked about it a lot, and again, if people want to see my in-depth stuff, they can go on my channel and look. But that's even besides the point, man. That's like that's the cherry on top of this whole shit. Sunday is that part of it. It's like on top of it is his moral shortcomings.
Exactly.
And that's the part. It's like the extra thing. And it's like, okay, that's what put me over the edge. I'm like, why are we tolerating this dude anymore? We need to speak up.
Yep.
And the people that are saying, again, the Jaren apologists, like I call them, they're going to see in a couple of months. They're just going to be slow to come around to it. But I agree with you that there's going to be a significant part of his following that's going to go over the bridge right with him, man. They're going to just follow whatever he says. They want to be there for reefer roulette, and they want to be there just for the Jaren experience, and they're just going to buy whatever bullshit that he's selling. But his hangers on, like the content creators that are just basically riding his coattails, they're not going to go along with Jaren. He's going to leave them all in the dust, and they're all going to be looking real funny in a couple months when all this goes down. They're looking real funny now, but they're going to look real funny because he has no allegiance to them. Jaren's about himself. He has shown that. And the thing about, like you said, the way he's not engaging in conversation. When I went on his show, he was dismissive to me from the beginning. Not only as people who follow me can attest to, when I addressed the final experiment, it was very respectful. I gave my opinion about it. He did a 5-hour diatribe stream on me where he went on and on. Okay. Then when I contacted him to say, hey, let's, schedule a stream. Let's talk about this live. He was dismissive. He was arrogant with me, through text. He titled the stream I was on, "How Can a Flat Earther Believe in a 24-Hour Sun?" So right there, dissing me off the bat. And anybody could watch the stream that I did with him, where he just insulted me the whole time because I disagreed with him on a topic. He was very insulting to me. But this is what Jaren does. He insults people. He gaslights the entire community. And anybody who tries to present information that goes against the narrative of the gatekeepers, which I call the Flat Earth Mafia, they basically gaslight everybody. They smear them, and they basically try to get them pushed out of the community because people have come forward to both Nacheketa and myself and told us their stories. They said, hey, in 2018, I told Jaren that there's issues with his simplistic model that he has, but no, they just wanted to push the pizza pan with the circling sun and the AE map. And I'm not against the AE map. I'm not even against the circling sun, but there's so many complexities that go into these two things. Okay. Yes. The AE map appears to be the most accurate map that we have. It works for navigation. The circling sun appears to be the most accurate representation of the heavens with the circling heavens with the stars, the moon, everything. That appears to be a sound, let's say, conception of this world. But that doesn't make it de facto reality, especially when there's evidence that debunks it. When these various bits of evidence have been pointed out to these gatekeepers, with Jaren being amongst the most with the subscribers, they were rejected. They wouldn't address it. They wouldn't have the conversation because it went against their narrative. They were making money off the narrative. You don't want people to know that there's issues with the circling sun between Cancer and Capricorn throughout the year. You don't want to know. They didn't want to present the sun calculation data and the celestial data that contraindicated that model to their followers because it would have threatened their power and the hold they have. So year by year, they entrenched a model. They did their own form of indoctrination and gatekeeping with the community. Now people are emotionally invested in it. So when they have people like me and Nacheketa come on and say, whoa, 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 when you are in the far south, whether it's South America, Australia,
New
or
Zealand.
South Africa, New Zealand, there's issues with the way the sun works. Okay, the celestial data contraindicates their simplistic model. Just like a 24-hour sun in Antarctica, in the Antarctic summer, contraindicates their simplistic model. So instead of just questioning the model, instead of just evaluating other models, instead of adjusting their model, people like Jaron fall into the false binary and say, well, if it's not the model, if it's not the way I think it is, if it's not the way I've said for 9 years, well, I'm going to reject the entire concept of a level horizontal topographical plane and say that an impossible globe could exist. And now that's what we're picking up on, because now he's starting to say, well, yeah, I know that we debunked boats going over the, curvature in the horizon, but eventually they do go over, they do disappear bottom up. When he made that argument, which I pointed out, he said, well, yeah. And then Bro Sanchez was like, no, okay, yeah, but once your binoculars, once it leaves your view, you get something else. Get your P900 out, and then it comes back. And then he said, well, eventually it leaves. He gave a globe argument. Now, he knows better. He knows that the radius value is falsified once you say that there's no geographic horizon at 3 miles. He knows that debunks the radius. He understands that. Or like when he started to basically give the Glober argument of refraction. When we say, look, you can see Peak Gaspard in the Alps from 275 miles away. And there's some people that say you can see mountains 700 miles away in the Alps or to Crete. Or what about the idea that if you are in a very high altitude airplane, like these SR-71s that go like 90,000 feet above sea level, they can see like geographic features like 900 to 1,000 miles away, like Baja California or the Rockies or the Pacific Ocean. And people say, oh, well, you're so high. You're 90,000 feet. No. Do the math. That's the biggest globe destroyer, is because as you go into distance, it's basically it's non-linear, because you're squaring it. Yep. But as you're going up in altitude, that is a linear growth. So just because you have to go 80 or 90,000 feet above sea level to see something 1,000 miles away, do the math on that. That blows the globe away more than a mountain 275 miles away from land or anything else. Jaron knows that, but he starts to then make the argument about refraction. Well, the Globers say it's refraction. We say it's just you're seeing the actual object. So, it could be either or. No, it can't be either or. Refraction doesn't work like that. And the fact that Jaron is making those globe arguments now is highly suspicious.
Yes.
Because he knows better. And that's why I'm so comfortable calling him a shill, is because of those things. Is because he actively understands that he's arguing against demonstrable reality, a reality that he's researched for years and years. And that's why I call him a shill. So, this is sort of where I am with Jaron. And again, to the apologists, you should know better. But I'm going to give people the benefit of the doubt, man. That's why I'm not going off on people. I'm not bringing people's names up for the most part, although I have. But I'm not going in on them, because they need to have a chance to say, okay, when Jaron becomes more entrenched, we have to give them room and not squash them out. We have to give them room and basically take the high road. And that's my position moving forward.
I feel you on that. Now, we can't forget how we were fucking idiots, because if we believed that the earth was still flat if there was a 24-hour sun. I remember that. And I remember that when he said that on his channel, that if we see the sun doing something for 24 hours, hanging out there above Antarctica, right, that we're idiots if we still believe that the earth is flat. And then I'm like, wait a minute, like you got to give it some time, like reevaluate some things. Sure. Look at Gleason's AE map, Urbano Monti's map again. Sure. I have no problem with reevaluating a bunch of things. But we're idiots. Like, so then I'm like confused. I'm like, did I just hear Jaron say that? Like, he doesn't mean it. I don't think he really gets it. Nah, he's just playing around. Like, so then does this mean that the earth is now going to curve up? Does this now mean that, we're going to start to feel movement, right? All the movements that they're talking about, we're going to start to feel all these things. It's not going to change anything, right? And
Right.
so this is why I was like, he needs a chance to explain himself. He
Well,
needs
Vlad, that's why I went
Yeah.
so in depth. That's why I went through like 50 some hours of his content, because I was like you, I was trying to give him the benefit of the doubt, man.
Yeah.
But once I had my debate with him on his channel, that's when I knew, because I was face to face with him. You know what I mean? I was interacting with him. But I said, okay, I got to be sure. That's why I went so into his content for like all those things, because I had to make sure. And then once I did that, and that's why I presented it, and it's like 4 hours long, because I had to show that it wasn't a fluke. He didn't just say, because some people, they'll just they're like, oh, remember when you said that one thing once? And you're like, yeah, I said one thing 2 years ago, and you haven't let it go, and I retracted. I said it wasn't. This isn't the situation with Jaron, everybody. Jaron doubled and tripled and quadrupled down on multiple platforms, to Nacheketa, to myself, to Bro Sanchez, to Dave Weiss himself, his buddy Dave Weiss, right to his face said the earth cannot be flat if I see a 24-hour sun. So it's beyond that. It's beyond that part now.
Yeah, because even Dave Weiss was like, yeah, Jaron, do you actually want to take any of that back? Because Jaron, can I say something? Jaron, can I say something? And I was like, yeah, man, can he say something? Because right now he's trying to save your ass, bro.
Right.
And you might need to listen. And I could see why David Weiss is doing what he's doing, and they have such a good working relationship. They're like freaking frack, Jack and Jill, right? They work well with one. So to see that relationship kind of fizzle online in real time, it's kind of a shame. So he's, in a sense, like he's trying to save him and give him a way out, but it's like
an out. Right. And he just doubled down right into it. Exactly. That's what I thought too. It was like, all right, his buddy came on and was like, I'm going to give you an out here. And Jaron said, no, I'm going head on into this. F you, Dave. F you, everybody. I'm doing this for me. Because make no mistake about it, and I could be wrong, but I don't think I am. Once Jaron does his official globe flip, his life is going to change. It's going to be a very different life for him, because he then becomes, the flat earther who saw the light. He then becomes the one person who they can trot out in front of everybody, and they'll say he was the #1 flat earther. They're going to claim it. Look, he had 160,000 subscribers. He was Jaron. He's the one that everybody voted to go on this final experiment. And once he saw with his own eyes, he woke up from his delusion, his flat earth delusion, and they're going to trot him out. And that's going to be very profitable for him. Yep. So make no mistake about it. There's significant consequences that are going to go along with this. Immediately he gets embraced by all the anti-flat earthers, who he's been very cozy with, by the way. Very interesting that he's had all these debates on where he just sits there silently and just lets, like, oh, it's just equal. Like he's doing now. Oh, well, we say, we can see the object, and they say refraction. So that basically balances out. Like his whole narrative now is flat earth and the globe are basically equally valid. And this is the one thing that's going to show, oh, no, it's the globe all along. See, this is the narrative that he's playing along, when the reality is the globe is simply impossible. Just because they give us a thing called gravity and they give us a thing called refraction and they fake a moon landing and NASA fakes space doesn't give those things any legitimacy. The globe theory never got off the ground, okay, because it's impossible from the jump. Right. So you can't go with the simplistic argument, where you say, well, they're equally valid because both sides give an answer. And this is the one thing that the flat earthers can't give an answer for. Mm-hmm. That's fallacious from its foundation, and that's what he's presenting.
Mm-hmm. Now, and what I also found telling was, while he was, out there giving out his business about how we're idiots and everything else, I said, but what about this whole fake sun? I said, I've seen China talking about where they're creating a fake sun. Now, it's not just China. Now that we've learned, it's China, India, Australia, Russia, Germany, the US, or some other country in Europe, right? Germany, I think, is it. But and the US that have come up with this artificial sun, or the ways to come up with an artificial sun. Now you're also hearing about these guys that run a business where they could provide false sunlight. Right. And this isn't fiction. And it's not like this is something they came out with. Like, people, what I think people fail to realize at the same time is how the reason behind a lot of the United States' success is how deceptive and how well trained in deceit that this country is. This country is like knock your socks off, really good at deceiving people, unmask people, right? And so this is why they invest so much money in things like graphics and things like Disney, and actors and entertainers makes all kinds of money because they're there as a distractor. So all the things you mentioned, the moon landing, Sputnik, this one, that one, but you also have to consider the things in between, the Star Treks, the Lost in Space, the Transformers, Star Wars, this one, that one, you know, Battlestar Galactica, you can name it. There's a whole litany of entertainment that's there to distract us, that is used as a filler of in between time of those actual big major events. The Challenger going down, that's a whole nother story in itself, right? The Challenger, the moon landings, the Parker space probe, that's apparently the fastest thing that we know, the man that's moving at like 400,000 miles an hour around the sun and then back to Earth, how it's whatever. So all these things are those actual events, but we have the fillers in between to keep us like, well, there's no way that it could be fake. I mean, I just finished watching Star Wars, and that looks pretty real. So constantly they've got these things loaded up with us, but it lets us know that this has reached a point to where now there's a possibility of Candace Owens going out there for what? What she got to go for? Neil deGrasse Tyson going out there because
It's her producer that's going, not her herself.
now it's not her. But okay, but now Neil deGrasse Tyson and Captain Kirk. What do you send an 80, a 90, a 900-year-old man out to Antarctica for? To view this thing. He's a form of entertainment. Why does he have to go? Neil deGrasse Tyson, let me tell you something. A lot of people ain't gonna like what I have to say, but it's the damn truth. Okay, this is what motherfuckers do. They get a black dude, right? Somewhat smart black dude that's good at his craft. They bump him up because white folks fucked up so much. They put a black dude out there that they could use as some sort of like a punching bag, that they could use as their lying tool. They put him out there and they're like, hey, this is the hottest scientist around. Look at him. Look at how chic he is. He's black. So we're going to present him to you, and he could say oogie boogie, and then you're going to fall for it. Well, he can't be lying to me. I mean, he's a black dude. Why would he sit there bullshit to me? Those other dudes have been bullshitting to me. So let me tell you something. These guys are very crafty in how they fucking conduct business, and they're using Neil deGrasse Tyson to perpetuate this lie. And yes, is there a good reason that everybody thinks that they're going to put a false sun out there? Obviously, there's a good reason. You have these guys on Flat Earth Banjo's channel that are showing, hey, these are gardeners that have been gardening for quite some time, that are starting to show the stuff that they're growing. Anytime they leave it out in the sun, it's starting to either burn or it isn't facing the sun like sunflowers do. It's not facing the sun like they normally do. So it turns away from the sun or it turns away from what's supposed to be the sun, but it's not the sun, so it's not getting that energy that it normally gets. So now people are starting to call these things out, and this is something that Jaron said. How would they go about? You're an idiot if you believe that they put an artificial sun up there. Well, let me tell you something. This world is strange. This country is so far advanced in the technology and the things that they do. DARPA is such a strong force. We have no clue the things that they can do and the things that they've come out with already. Hell, they're talking about they had weather manipulation back in the 70s. I didn't know about it until it was on an episode of G.I. Joe where they started shooting clouds and it started to rain all over the place. So this is a form of, hey, we're going to seed your mind, but these are things that we can do already. We've been doing this for damn near over 20 years already. So think about how advanced that they are at their craft. And even if you're not a flat earther, if you're a globe earther, at least consider that possibility. We're not even in December yet, but damn it, before you know it, we'll be there. And think about what these people can do with this artificial sun. If it's in fact something that could be factored in, just think about it. And so that alone, and when he doesn't even consider it, especially knowing that the community that Jaren is in already, I'm like, I don't know, dude. Like, I've given you a million different outs, dude. You're not even trying to hear us out on that. I can't trust you.
Well, that's what I was saying earlier about the paradigm thing, because if one has an idea of mystery, right, when we don't really know what the sky is, yes, we can observe things about the sky, okay? We can have data. We can take multiple data points around with our observations, but that's really it. And then we can make certain inferences. We can conjecture things, but there's nothing we could really know about the sky. There's stories from antiquity about a time where there was like no moon, where wasn't even a moon during humanity. You see what I mean? So we don't even know what all the stuff is. So once you get out of your bookends, right, and you could open your mind up to other possibilities, because if you can't substantiate a thing, then all you can have is your idea of what the thing is. You don't really know what it is. Contrast that with the ground that we live on, that we can measure, that we can test, that we can repeat, that we can put up to scientific scrutiny, that we could substantiate. So to make claims like an optical phenomenon can override the physical measurements that we have of the earth, to me, is fallacious in its in its reasoning. That's kind of how I'm looking at the whole thing. And there was something else I wanted to say, but I don't know if we still wanted to get into this video because we've been prepping this video for people. So maybe we should get into it.
Yeah. If you had something to say, definitely. But I know 17 minutes 17. I got that mug on paper. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, let's continue with this. Yeah.
This
Hey.
Already seen a little bit of the ostracizing before they've even gone. So when Jaren simply said, hey guys, I think it's a good idea for us to go to Antarctica with the final experiment, they started calling him a shill. They started.
See, that's a
him
gaslight
a
right there.
opposition,
See, that's not true.
Yeah,
that's not true. We're calling Jaren out because of the things that he's saying, because he's buying into the false binary. Yeah. That's just the gaslighting that Will Duffy is reinforcing, that Jaren is spewing on everybody. Nobody really has a problem with anybody going there. I have yet to talk to a person who wouldn't love to go down there and observe. We've always been saying we want to go to Antarctica and we want to observe, but we want to do it unfettered. Why here? Why in this desperate, final experiment in this one place with these few people under this condition given by Will Duffy? So that to me is just a gaslight.
That's right. And for him to come out and just be like, oh, well, and Jaren just asked, hey guys, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, motherfucker, didn't you just see what this joker was saying that whole goddamn time? Didn't you just sit there and watch us like try to break it down for him? Like, dude, give us a chance. What are you talking about? He was going back and forth with the people within his audience that one time. Like, why don't you address these things? And see, and this is why it's like consistently, like it's consistency with the truth, but it's also consistency with lies as well. These dudes never seem to fail when it comes to bullshitting people, man. And it's like, yo, like if you're of the globe, you have to call a strike a strike. You have to see this for what it is. Like you have to. Hey, I got people. I know exactly who you are within this chat right here. You got I Am Wilson and you got Professor Phil. Both of which talk shit all the time. Y'all just the bills just keep flapping and flapping. You know what I'm saying? And y'all steady talking shit, but when these guys consistently show that they're being deceitful or they're keeping the truth from you, and we have to demonstrate over and over again, how does that make you feel? Do you even consider this? And so not just you guys, but at large to the rest of the communities, right? Both the globe and the flat earth community. This is what we see all the time. And so it's us yelling back like, hey, show what he said about this, but nobody's going to see that. All they're going to see is Will Duffy, playing the good guy, the good pastor. Oh, it's the good pastor saying, oh, well, Jaren, he's actually reasonable, and all that other nonsense. And then all they're going to do is fall for it. So nah, man,
right.
you can't buy that nonsense no more, y'all. Shit.
and then keep gaslighting and say like we're all afraid of this experiment that's could be further from the truth, this so-called experiment. All right, Notch.
Like, whoa, guys, what's going on?
Level Earth Observer has been pretty damning for Jaren, isn't he? And you know, if there's not a crane there that's got like his little crane thing not moving, he's not going to be happy. Bless him.
Yeah, Level Earth Observer actually released a video recently that I don't understand. Maybe somebody could help me understand it. But he was talking about seeing birds and somehow tied that into whether or not we'll see a 24-hour sun in Antarctica.
No, I'll have to have a look at that. I haven't looked at him for about a week, so I normally wait about a week, 10 days, and then look through like the 7 or 8 videos he's released.
All right.
I want everybody to think about it, okay? This man you see on the right, this Simon Dan, how he's following all these flat earthers. This is his livelihood, everybody. Notch and Vlad and myself, we're here doing this, and we have like other stuff in our life that we do, and we come on here and do this. And every other flat earther is the same way, besides maybe 2 or 3. You have at least 5 to 10 people who make a very good livelihood all day long breaking down this stuff. This is what they do. And some of the people that you mentioned, Vlad, that are following you around, you know, you just brought up a bit ago, we can't discount the possibility that they're paid to come here and just be gaslighters and, rabble rousers and disrupt the community, make their comments. More and more, I'm seeing bots come up. In my 2 years here online, I've seen the increase in bots that even live, they even interact live in the chats and they're leaving comments. And it's just to put things in people's mind. It's again, you just say, oh, you stupid flurf this, or don't you know this? And for people who are new to it, it's just enough to get them to question it because it plays on it triggers their conditioning. And it basically appeals to their emotion. Again, all logical fallacies. So there's active subterfuge here, not just with these main anti-flat earthers, but with the algorithms, through the platforms, and in so many ways. So, and look at Duffy's face through this whole thing. Look at the face he has now. And he always has this wry, gotcha, called a duper's delight smile on his face, right? And I could say, and the amount of time that Duffy is spending on this, he's supposed to be this financial guy with a family and he has a church, but he's, booking 2 hours with Notch. And here he is with Simon Dan. And he's on like, I don't know, Arwin's channel, much love Arwin, but you know what I mean? Like on these like relatively unknown small flat earth channels, he's spending all this time with this. Do you think a man like Will Duffy is going to invest this amount of time and energy without a payoff and without a payoff that he already knows? You think he's gambling? No, somebody like Duffy knows what he's doing. This is a play. Okay. And anybody who's buying into this, you're just getting played by this charlatan straight up. The ones that could see it can see it. Maybe some people are on the fence, and maybe some people need more time. And the rest of you're going to be Globers after this.
That's right. And you want to know something? This is something because I interviewed Will a few months back. And then, to his surprise, freaking Saab showed up and just put that people's elbow on his forehead. And so Will wasn't expecting the level of questions that Saab was coming out, right? And shout out to Saab, Sovereign Soul and his channel. Awesome dude, right? And so Saab was just asking him, like, hey, what's the deal with, his financial situation? And I'm not going to mention his financial situation because I don't know if there's a final judgment on that. So I don't want to bring things like that up to kind of mess him up or however which way it's going to work with him, right? But like we're asking him the questions that other channels hadn't seemed to ask him at that time. And Will Duffy just wasn't ready for it. And one of the things that I asked him was like, hey, Will, so why are you doing this? And then he's like, out of the kindness of my heart. And I said, wait a minute. I said, nobody with that much money does anything out of the kindness of their heart. I said, either you're going to get paid or there's something that's waiting for you on the back end. What is it? He's like, oh, no. Out of the kindness of my heart, I'm doing this. And I just sat there, mouth twisted like a mug. I'm just like, really? Okay. I'm going to believe that. And then how he gets his pastorship and everything else as if it was passed down to him like it was Excalibur or something like that. And I'm like, yeah, okay, that's obviously not true. These are a bunch of untruths, but We'll give him a chance. And I said, hey, you know what? I don't know if this is true or not true, but we'll let time dictate. Now it's starting to turn out that a lot of what he said is not what he actually said the first few times. You know what I'm saying? A lot of
Yeah,
what he said is starting to come back to bite him in the ass. His stories keep
yes.
changing.
Yeah, and Notch knows better than anybody that fact. This idea that he's been shown consistently to be dishonest. The biggest one for me, Nacheketa, was when you pointed out that he claimed that he had never heard of flat Earth until 2021, August of 2021, from one of his parishioners when they brought it up. But in reality, he has very close ties with Bob Enyart.
Bob Onion, yeah.
Yeah, that go back many, many, many years to a radio show, the Real Science radio show, where they actively were trying to basically discredit the flat Earth in 2018, 3 years prior to the date that Will Duffy said he first ever even heard that there was flat earthers. So he obviously lied right there. So right there from the jump, he's suspect. And I've watched him on multiple interviews, and depending on his audience and the interviewer, he has a different story. You see him sitting there again like a pig in shit with Simon Dan, talking about how the dumb flurfs are going to look stupid in a couple months. But when he's on a flurf channel, it's, like Vlad said, I just want to just know what the truth is because I'm not sure. And I want to know what the truth is. And you flat earthers said this will be the definitive quote unquote experiment. You've all said this quote. So again, he'll basically just generalize us all because a few prominent gatekeepers years ago told us there was no 24-hour sun and that would be the debunk and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So he latched onto that and he keeps presenting that. So he's been inconsistent this entire time. So he's already shown himself to be untrustworthy. And it's like anything. It's like in people who study like law, okay, or the legal system or the lawful system. What you understand is once somebody has shown themselves to be a liar, they're discredited. So if you bring up a witness in a trial, if you show that they've lied, their testimony has to go out the window. You know, there's a Latin saying, falsus in unum is falsus in omnibus, which means if you're false in one thing, you have to be considered to be false in all things. So once he's shown himself to be a dishonest liar, how could anybody buy into this false binary experiment unless they had some other interest to do so, whether it's financial or otherwise? Plain and simple.
Yeah, let me just chime in real quick. So I'm going to be having Will Duffy on Wednesday. I was actually kind of surprised that he responded to my email. Maybe knowing, maybe not being aware that I have made several videos about my speculation about him and and again, like I'm going to give him the opportunity to explain himself. So I'm going to be asking a lot of questions. 2 hours is a pretty decent amount of time to go through a lot of these points. And we will see what he has to say about it, really, what it comes down to. But that's going to be on the record. It's going to be for the public. And, and like in his position, Will Duffy's position, like he already has everybody locked in. He's got the final experiment. A lot of people are all hyped up about it. The final experiment is already, the tickets are bought. We have the 3 contestants already going. So, I mean, like, maybe he's in a position like, who gives a fuck what you or I or anybody here says about it, because like come December and everything rolling out, you're going to get Netflix and the mainstream media, Fox, CNN, everybody else get involved. We get completely landslided over. Like nobody will know who we are. Nobody will care about who we are. We've been like, chirping in the background, but then the, highlighted thing is going to be these institutions, these, agencies, and who cares about us? So
yeah, and I wanted to bring another thing up regarding Will Duffy is, he claims that he wants to be objective with this, but in reality, he can't steelman any of our flat Earth arguments, which shows he's done no research into our side. He just heard that flat earthers existed, decided that it was just insane or whatever his agenda is, and set out to basically destroy it. Now, whether he's supported, like I think he is in some ways or otherwise, I have no proof. I think he's not acting alone. I think he has a full organization behind him, because these pastors, they're not just pastors. They're always involved in these brotherhoods and these societies. We can go on and on about that. So I think he's being supported. Again, his close connections with Bob Enyard, who has been actively working to discredit the flat earth for, again, since 2018 that we know of, that we have evidence of. So again, he can't come and he can't explain what, maybe our argument would be for like a setting sun. He can't explain, why we hold the understandings that we do. And we have, this so-called belief of this level horizontal earth. He has no idea. He can't do that. So right there, again, like just that basic example shows his obvious bias. But he tries to present this, again, when he's in front of certain audience, as he's, like you said, just trying to help do the right thing, do the thing that's good, because he just wants to know the truth. He's just in it for the truth. He's basically obscuring and occulting his obvious agenda. And I think the flat earth community, a lot of people are very nice. People tend to project their own internal space out to the world, and they wouldn't do this to people. They wouldn't gaslight people. They wouldn't, exploit people, manipulate people. But there's people on this earth that have no problem doing that, especially if they're going to benefit. So they give people the benefit of the doubt. It's like what they're doing with Jaron, to the point that's beyond reasonable, where they're giving people the benefit of the doubt where there obviously shouldn't be. And it's the same thing with Jaron, same thing with Will Duffy. And again, I'll land the plane on this. It's an energy thing. So right now, there's a resonance on one side and there's a resonance on the other side. If you can't see the side that Jaron is in league with, you are either not paying attention, or you just don't want to see it because you're emotionally connected to the community or the man, or for what other reason. And that's why I think it's so important for other prominent people in the community to speak up. And I'm not going to blow, certain names out, but I know Nacheketa and I have been in communication, and there's certain prominent flat earthers who are choosing to stay out of this conversation right now because of their allegiance to Jaron or for whatever reason. And there's so many. Not the ones just we mention all the time. Like, of course, Dave should be live every day talking about this. He's not. But there's other people in prominence who are stepping back, Now, whether they're in some way, I don't know, threatened by losing maybe whatever financial windfall that they're getting from this or otherwise. But I don't know what their motive is. I don't even want to conjecture. But it's important for people to step up and speak on this, because then it allows other people to do it. Okay. And it gives the opportunity for other voices to come forward. And then we can build momentum on our side, and we can start vibrating, and we can start building a resonance and a synchrony on our side. And we start putting the pieces together. Okay. And yeah, some people are going to think, because there's a lot of camps here. There's the camps that say, look, yeah, there's a 24-hour sun in Antarctica, and I've known that for years, and I'm still a flat earther. Great. There's other camps that are saying, I don't think that could exist, so maybe they'll fake something down there, okay? Whatever your thought is regarding this, there's one inescapable fact, is that this is an obvious setup that is organized, and it's not what Will Duffy is presenting, like he did to both Nacheketa and you and Vlad, that he's just wants to do what's best, wants to do what's right. There's an agenda here. That's whatever you think is going to go down in there. That's a fact. This is an agenda. This is a setup. This is an obvious hit piece. Okay. That to me is beyond dispute. There's nothing to dispute there. So people in the community, why not just talk about that? That's why I give Dave Weiss credit, because Dave Weiss knows this is a setup. He understands it, and the funny thing, and I said this before, I'll say it again. I hold Dave still in high esteem. Maybe I shouldn't, because a lot of people call Dave out as the number one shill in the community. I don't believe that about Dave. I'm actually in the other camp, but Dave needs to be a little bit stronger here. Dave needs to come out and say something a little more, and so many other people that I can call out right now, but I won't because of discretion. But he certainly Has to at this point.
Yeah, and it's
I know you're fucking listening, Dave. I know you're listening. You might not be listening now, but I know Dave listens to like us. It's not like Dave listens to this shit. People tell him, Dave, what are you doing? How many times do I have to tell you, dude? You're gonna just look like a clown to everybody. Like, okay, Dave. I don't think it's the shekels, Dave. Like, yeah, you made your shekels, but I believe that you believe the shit that you say about the earth. So what the fuck are you doing, Dave? All right.
Wow. That's Damn. Nice app though, Dave.
Okay, shall we continue, gentlemen?
Yeah, man. Yeah.
So where's the next timestamp?
2044 at 2044.
All right, 2040.
With them.
Yes. I mean, I consider them friends now. We've interacted a lot planning for this trip and all the lead up to it. So yeah, I'm not going to stop communicating with a friend.
Okay, excellent stuff. I think the three of them will eventually admit it. It will take time. They'll go home. They'll process everything, and I can pretty much guarantee that Jaren will make a video, sort of coming out as a globe earther at some point. I don't necessarily think he'll admit that we're moving and all of that, but he will say that the Earth is spherical. I do think that. I've also got a question from Yunners. So Yunners is a member of the channel. He says, is there any worry that being in a relatively remote place with people that fundamentally disagree with each other will lead to largely awkward and tense experiences for the duration of the trip, at least until they see the 24-hour sun?
I don't think so. And here's why. There's something about engaging with people online that kind of brings out the worst in people, right?
Totally.
And so this digital era that we live in, which was further exacerbated by COVID, which has kept everybody in their homes and everybody's online now, has really just kind of made people treat each other worse. When you're with someone, face to face in person, it's just different. And I think everything's going to be great. We're all going to be together in South America and Chile for a few days before we fly to Antarctica. I think it's going to be all good.
I totally agree with you. And Dave McKeegan and MC Toon and Critical Think are all really level-headed guys. They're not going to, get into any sort of a bother. I think it'll be absolutely fine. Totally agree on that. I always wonder actually what would happen, because obviously I get, as you can imagine, I get quite a lot of abuse online, mainly from people on X, but I always wonder what would happen if I saw a flat earther in real life and how they would react towards me. If I know they wouldn't act as they do online, but I always wonder how they would act. I know there's one that lives about 10 miles from me. So it'd be interesting if I ever bumped into him. But
yeah, if you bumped into him on a run or something.
Yeah, that's it. Anyway, Will, I'm not going to say I'm got everything crossed for you because I know it's going to be fine. But I hope the trip is absolutely fantastic. Thanks so much for organising it. It really is a great idea. And I absolutely look forward to the fallout that's going to inevitably happen.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll keep you
right.
updated.
See, he knows.
Yeah, definitely.
Exactly.
And they know what the impact of this is going to be. They know this is going to be beyond these communities. That's why I say, this is an organized thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So this is like, it's like you said, it's like, they have like the swag ready to go. The hats are printed, it's like the Super Bowl when they already have the hats printed up, that they're ready to go with the whole thing. And, there's an obvious underpinning here. Go ahead. Yeah, I was reading that.
Lori, why are you talking shit about us, Lori? What did we do to you?
Mouth vomit. Oh, is it? You mean Z and Natch?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that Lori is. Just make yourself clear, Lori. What did we do?
Who's Lori?
What did we do?
Oh, Lowry. Yeah, Lowry is. Lowry's good people. I don't think he's talking shit about y'all. At least I hope not.
Why? I hope not.
Mouth
Lowry.
vomit. Mouth vomit.
These two, right?
Was it Mike Lowry?
Yeah, you know Lowry. Yeah,
From
out of
Bad Boys.
no,
Will Smith.
Duffy
Will
and
Smith from
Dumbass.
Bad Boys.
No, he's talking about Duffy and
Oh, okay.
and
All right.
Simon then, you know, blah 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 blah. My beans and toast, you know, all that craziness.
You have the voices going. Somebody said you needed to work on your Dave Weiss impression. I thought it was pretty good.
Oh, my Dave.
You got to Jew it up a little bit though. You got to like do the, you know.
Okay. So what's this right here? See this? That's South America right here. Okay.
So yeah, I know I gotta work on it. I gotta work on it.
But I do have a good flatzoid impression. I do, yes. And if they're going to discuss anything, then they would discuss cosmology or cosmogony. One of the two. It can't be both.
So I do flatzoid. I do all of them. That's what happens when you don't have a life. You know what I'm saying? So
You're making rounds. You're making your rounds to different flat Earth content creators. You know, so
well, I don't know because apparently so far today I've been even working on my Nacheketa impression as well. So this is one I'm also working on too. So
right. Well, if you're doing Nacheketa, you have to call Home Depot Home Depot.
Yeah, Home
That's
Depot.
the number one thing you have to do.
The Home Depot.
That's the number one.
Is this where the Earth is supposed to be? At the Home Depot? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, look, we just watched two Globies. One of them's like one of the most prominent anti-flat earthers on YouTube. Just basically say, yeah, Jaren's one of us now. Isn't that so cool? Isn't that awesome? Like,
yeah.
What?
And
this is how we got here. And what, we're supposed to sit here and not say anything?
Yeah.
And just what? Like, watch this happen?
They're they're just resting on their laurels, and they're so positive as to what the turnout's going to be this coming winter. And so I'm I'm just like, we're just going to have to wait and see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to have to wait and see what happens. But this is something that I mentioned to you, Natch, was that, you know, flat Earth folks are resilient, and there are so many eyes. We have so many eyes pointed in so many different directions. Somebody's going to see some bullshit. If they decide they want to pull something, somebody's going to see it. Somebody's going to catch it. This is the problem with lying. That they still, it's crazy because they still don't get it. This is why they're trash. This is the problem that you have with when you lie. Because somebody's going to see through your bullshit. If you're of the truth and you're being sincere and you're being upfront and honest, you're not trying to pull a fast one on anybody. If they find something, it's out of error. And you can easily, you'll be like, I don't know it, or I can explain it, right? I have nothing to hide. But when you have something like this to either hide, conceal, or use as some form of deceit, people are just, they're just salivating at the mouth, waiting for you to pull a fast one. There are people already waiting for you to say something or do something because they're going to use it against you. And another thing is that all these globers and everything else with all these big and prominent channels, listen up. I know you're listening right now. Listen up. This truth is getting out there, and your kids are watching. Your kids are watching damn hard. So you better figure out what you want to do. You better figure out if you want to be of the truth or if you want to continue pushing this lie, because here's the thing. You know what this earth composes of. You know where it is that we live. The more you keep pushing this bullshit and the more our truth gets out, your kids are going to look at you suspect. Do you think it's worth it? Think about it. That's all I got.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to remind everybody that you know, this is bigger than any one of us. You know, like the flat Earth, and the truth is above all of us. And at the end of the day, whether you have family or not, whether you have children or not, everything that we are doing is for posterity. You know, for future generation. And so we are given an opportunity to come to some understanding about the truth, and it's a biggie. You know, like not everybody is. Like have the how would I say, like, how do I put it in a way that is like they may not be interested in it, but you also would need like and opportunity, education, the interest, a lot of combination is needed to go towards, the truth of understanding what this reality has to offer. The people who may have the opportunity to do so may not want to do that. I don't know why, because they have other interests or whatever. But we are here. We are here. We're interested in this, and at the end of the day, we need to pass that legacy along. It's about values. It's about culture. It's about uh, who we are, who we want to represent, and your reputation of speaking the truth is an important thing, and that's why we speak about the things that we speak about. And when I mention anybody's names, I don't do it lightly. I don't just want to go out there and mention this person or that person and call everybody a shill, because it actually loses the potency of what that word actually means. So I really want to call people out for what I believe they are actually doing. And when I call somebody a shill, I'm saying that they are doing this maybe consciously or unconsciously, but ultimately to hurt. It's going to hurt the truth and the movement in which that we represent. And that's why I am calling these people out. Other people who are unbeknownst to them, or they're conscious or unconscious of the people they're associated with. This is the canary in the coal mine, me yelling out to them, hey, look, be careful whom you are associating with, because it might come back and bite you in the ass. So I'm going to give you the warning now. I'll give you 2 warning shots across the bow, whatever it takes. But after a certain period, I gave you all the warnings that I gave you. Like, now what? That's what it comes out to.
That's right. All bets are off at that point. And it's going to be a crappy position to be in. Like, which side, kind of like what Z said, man. What side do you want to be on at the end of the day? Like, think about now how everybody thinks this place is a globe, but that's starting to change, and it's changing in front of y'all's eyes. So pay close attention to that. And just like you said, Z, man, ain't no money in this. Ain't nobody making no money off of this. We still got to wake up and we got to make it happen every single day. So this is out of our passion for it, because there is a fellowship in here as well, but also we're of like minds, because this is something of a positive thing. This is something there's growth. This is so new. I don't know if anybody's ever played Castlevania before, but Symphony of the Night, one of my most favorite games in the world. After you beat the first part of the game, right? That's not it. The game's not over. They give you a new map, and the world is turned upside down, and it's kind of like the upside down world. So now you get to discover and explore something new. At first, when I came into this community, I was pissed because it felt like I had to start over again. But at the same time, I was relieved, because it showed me that there is a possibility. There are possibilities other than what I thought this place was, and that we have a chance. We can do something different. It doesn't have to be on those that run this world, those that I guess you could say are stewards of this physical reality that we're in. It doesn't have to be on their watch. It's on our watch. We're the ones that actually call the shots, and we're a lot more powerful than we know and than we think. This is why when we yell the flat earth and we say it without shame, we're trying to bring you guys into the good news. And for those of you that don't want it, I don't know how else to say it, you're missing out. And when you'll see it, you'll see why we're so crazy about it and we're so passionate about it. But it's still a new thing. And I mean, to couple with everything that we learned, continue to learn, you've got the old world, right? You've got the Jared Boosters, the John Levy's, the My Lunch Breaks, and everything else. So we're starting to see that it's not only about the earth, but it's also about these little habitations that we lived in. Some of them are like right around the corner from where we live, and we're like, oh my goodness, this is as old as what these guys are professing, or this place is a place that I thought I knew, but now you have to look at it through a new lens, right? This is what the true and the flat earth have to offer. And for those of you that aren't in it, I feel bad for you, because not only are people going to remember you for being such a critic against us, but they're going to experience a lot sooner. Hopefully, I'm hoping that you see it for yourself, but they may be the ones to experience it a lot sooner, the joy of what this place can be if we all just get on board and if we all just get to see this place for what it truly is, what this place can possibly be. That's all I got for that.
I mean, because all their narratives build on each other. Okay, so their presentation of history, the presentation of science, okay, or even the religions that were presented to us, which I think for mainly for control purposes, they're all narratives that are stacked on top of each other. When you could understand that this is actually a level topographical plane that we live on, regardless of what you think might be happening in the heavens, it basically takes the legs out of all of that. And then you could look at this reality with new eyes, through a new lens, okay? And you could leave behind the belief system that was engineered and indoctrinated since you were born. Once you can leave that, drop that off, you could always pick that up again. It's not going to go anywhere. You can always go back to the periodic table. You can use it. You can always, think about the solar system in your mind. That doesn't ever go away. But you can put those things down, step out of your biases, and look at the world through a more objective lens and say, whoa, maybe if I can get past the magnitude of the deception, I can get past my emotions. I can get past my predispositions, and I could examine this world on its face and really look at it. What is demonstrated in this world? Can you demonstrate a world that they're presenting to you through so-called science? Does that hold up to scrutiny, scientific, logical, and otherwise? Because when you really start to examine the world free of indoctrination, you find that it's a vastly different place than the one they presented to us. You find that the science they presented, whether it's from the macro or the micro, is unevidenced and literally impossible, right? So you can discover that things like, again, these subatomic particles, they're unevidenced. Just like the heliocentric model is unevidenced. All right. Now, certain things you can use heliocentrism for utility, okay? To try to explain something to somebody, to try to explain an eclipse, okay? That doesn't mean that it's de facto reality. It's the same thing with the micro world. We can have concepts like electrons and ionic bonds and covalent bonds, and the periodic table is presented. We can use that for utility. It has a purpose. You can use it as a language to describe chemistry, to create things, but that doesn't mean that it's de facto reality. That doesn't mean that there's things called electrons, actual physical particles. These are concepts, they're models. So once you can break free of the conditioning and really examine the world, what world can you discover? And that's really what it comes down to. And like you were getting to, Vlad, it's a journey, because you may embrace a new understanding and then that gets toppled. Like for instance, we don't want to talk about the forces of nature, and they tell us there's a thing called gravity. Now in the flat Earth community, there's a diversity of opinions on what this phenomenon that we can call gravis or gravitas is. That there's a heaviness or a weight. There's a diversity of opinions, okay? My opinion has changed on that throughout the years, okay? And it may change even more. So again, does one have the ability and the intellectual courage and even the spiritual and emotional courage to push and challenge your belief systems? Because you should always be looking to falsify your belief systems. And there's always going to be, in the end, it's always going to come down to a fundamental thing that you either have to accept or not. But you have to challenge, and you have to have the courage to embrace the unknown. So let's get back to Jaron. His mindset is, well, because he said this to me and many times other places, that if he can't know what the sky is, then he's basically just going to disregard the things that he does know about this earth because he can't explain everything. And I said to him what I'm going to say here. Who said that we need to know and be able to explain everything? How could you explain something that you can't substantiate, like the heavens? You can only observe and record and postulate and conceptualize. Okay. But you can't explain things. You can't prove things that are unsubstantial. All right. So does one have the courage to do that? Can you go in and say, I don't really know what the sky's doing. I have an idea. Yeah, the sun seems to be circling around the AE map. It seems to be doing that. But here's some other data here that says, well, that might not be the whole story. So what are we missing? What other pieces do we have to look at? Okay. Yeah, that might be the closest explanation you can get that makes sense. But why should we then now accept that for de facto reality when it really can't be substantiated? Why do we need to do that? Are we so insecure that just because the world is giving you a bullshit answer about the heavens, about the eclipse, about what the sun and the moon and the stars are, doesn't mean that we have to then come up with some other bullshit answer? And again, that's illogical, because logically, you're under no burden to supply a new proof once you disprove something. Okay. There's no logical burden to replace something that's debunked. Just because I could debunk a thing that was told to you doesn't mean I need to tell you a new thing to replace it. That's not logically consistent. It doesn't work. Again, we'll go back to a court of law. If you make a claim against me, you have to prove that claim. Now, if I can disprove your claim, which I'm under no obligation to do, you're actually under the obligation to prove it. But if you say that I don't know, killed the butler in the billiard room with the candlestick, well, if I can show you I wasn't even in the building, I was hanging out, I was watching a movie, I have an alibi. So there you go. I just debunked your claim. I don't have to then go tell you who killed the butler in the billiard room with the candlestick. That's not my burden. I never made the claim. You made the claim. So you made the claim, or you support a claim, that we live in a heliocentric, reality, one in which we are rotating and orbiting around the sun. That's your claim. That's not my claim. So you need to prove it. And once you present your evidence and I debunk it, I'm under no obligation to then tell you what the sky is, what the sun is actually doing. That's logically inconsistent. And it's actually insane to think otherwise. But we've been conditioned now, like you said in the very beginning of this whole stream, is that we're in this thing where like we have all the answers. Oh, we know what black holes are, and we know what space is doing, and we know what the force is, and we know what so-called gravity is. And we have all these answers. So, okay, if you're telling me it's not that, then what is it, smarty pants? It's not the way it works. I can tell you that gravity doesn't exist because it can't be substantiated. If you're telling me that gravity is the bending and warping of space-time, and I tell you that space and time are abstractions and concepts, so how can you prove something that's a concept? How could I test a concept and an abstraction? How could I measure it? If I can't measure it, if I can't test it, if I can't even observe it, if it can't be demonstrated, then how could you say it's a real thing? Plain and simple. All right. Now, I have my theories on what that phenomena is, and they're mine, and I've talked about them. But the reality is, if we can debunk their presentation, we're under no obligation to give you a new presentation, because it could be anything. They called it the heavens for a reason. The heavens give it a concept of the spiritual, of the godly. That's where God lived in all the major, religions that were presented to us. Say what you want about them, okay? The heavens were for God. They weren't for man. And even in the Old Testament Bible, the so-called Luciferian, the fallen dream, was to basically usurp the throne of God in the heavens. Well, what are we doing? You know, we're supposedly blasting things up in the sky, and we're sending people to planets and the moon and space stations and things. Well, we were told the heavens are for God. So why do we have to give an earthly concept to these celestial bodies? We really don't know what they are. Look, the moon appears to be physical. It appears to have shadows in the craters. It appears to look spherical. Not all the time. Sometimes it doesn't. But that doesn't mean what I'm seeing is what it is, because optical things cannot be substantiated. Many things appear to be something that they are not. That's one thing that we can know about optics. A thing may not be what it looks like. And to make that one-to-one correlation, again, is fallacious. So, and for people who, maybe are new to this topic or don't know the details, the reality is what the heavens are doing doesn't match up on a flat earth or a globe. Okay? It doesn't work. It's not as simple. So just because they presented you, just because the gatekeepers for the last 9 years have presented you with an AE map and a sun and the moon and stars that circle around, just because they presented you a very simplistic model, it doesn't hold up. It's way more complex. The most basic thing for anybody paying attention is that the heavenly bodies cannot be triangulated, whether it's a flat earth or a globe. You can't triangulate the sun from multiple locations. You can't triangulate the moon from multiple locations, from a globe or a flat earth. You have to understand these. There is not a linear relationship between the way we see the various celestial bodies from multiple diverse locations around the earth. That's a fact. The celestial data proves it. All right. Now, this has been gone over many times by multiple people. Unfortunately, your flat earth gatekeepers have kept this information from you because they're benefiting from their presentation. All right. But that's the way it is. The heavens are doing things that we cannot understand at this point. It doesn't mean we have to stop looking. And it doesn't mean that if people have different opinions, that they're our enemies somehow. It's just an understanding of the sky, which is optical, versus the ground, which is physical, which can be substantiated. And anybody who's going to claim that they know what the sun does is probably somebody who you shouldn't be really giving too much attention to.
That's true. And I'll tell you what, like, we're going to consistently be chasing each other's tail about this whole thing where as soon as you're like, all right, look, it's not what you guys claim that it's doing, then you're going to come across the whole, oh, well, then what is it? You're so smart. Then tell me what it is. How are you going to tell me? I got a degree. I got my doctorates in, astrobiology, astroastronomy, nonsense like that. And this is one of the things that they do. All the degrees that you get, I got 2 degrees, both one in each armpit. You know what I'm saying? That's a joke. That's like a deodorant joke. Anyway, but so this is how they get a lot of y'all, man. They'll have you think that just because you got this degree that you know something, that you've learned something, that now you're like the purveyor of you're one of the gatekeepers of truth. And so they use you guys against us, even though you could have a degree in astronomy, a doctorate in astronomy. Has Neil deGrasse Tyson ever been in space? Has Neil deGrasse Tyson ever been inside of a space shuttle and launched it and landed it at Cape Canaveral or wherever, or in the Atlantic Ocean? He's never done any of these things. He's an overweight old man that talks about physics as if he's the creator of this realm. So everybody wants to sit there and believe him and people like him as if they know exactly what they're talking about. And they're just leading folks into the lake of fire, because you have folks that are just not classically trained oftentimes that could see this place for what it is. And you're looking at them. You look in this chat and it's full of people that could tell the truth about where it is we live. You could look at this panel right here and you could just tell, hey, these guys, they're being upfront with what this place is. Either they know or they don't know. And when we don't know something, it's easy to come out and say that we don't know, or that we don't have a clue. And at the end of the day, like I said, it's about integrity, right? And before you could be honest with anything or anybody else, you got to be first honest with yourself. Is what I'm seeing what I think I'm seeing? I don't know. Is what I'm hearing about, does that match with what my reality is? It doesn't. And it's okay to say that. It's okay to say that. It's a lot like being in math class and your teacher just comes out saying, "Hey, 2 + 2 is 8," and everybody just agrees with it. Yep, 2 + 2 is 8. Yep, 2 + 2 is 8. And you're like, "Wait a minute. How is 2 + 2 8?" And then meanwhile, everybody else is going to sit there and argue with you. What do you mean? How do you not know 2 + 2 is 8? Are you stupid or something? Where have you been? Haven't you been paying attention? No, I'm not going to give you my homework. You're just an idiot. Now, there's something similar to that when I was in Navy boot camp years ago. We have the navy blue, right? The navy blue is this color. I don't know what color you think this robe of mine is, but it's not blue. So while I was in boot camp, there were people in there that were arguing with me saying, "Hey, man, this pea coat," and I'm sure you guys are familiar with the Navy pea coat, "this pea coat is blue. If you look at it hard enough, it's blue." And I'm like, the more I look at that pea coat, it's making my eyes hurt because all I see is a black coat in front of me. And then there started to be more people going into the camp of, "No, the jacket is blue. If you look at it, yeah, I could see it. Oh, hold it up to the light real quick. I could see that." And so right then and there, I started to realize, I was like, wow, people are crazier than I thought. Like, how could these people actually think this jacket that's totally black, like my robe, is blue? And that taught me a lesson. Well, then again, at the same time, more than half the division had a lazy eye, so maybe that says something too. But I mean, that right there was a lesson for me, to show that even in my small little microcosm of people in my boot camp division, that people are just going to go along just to get along. Whether it's right or not, you just have to be honest with yourself. Is this correct? Is what I'm seeing correct? And if I don't know, maybe I just need to take a harder look. Maybe or maybe just take a step back, take a breather, and I just need to be honest with myself. I don't know. It's okay to say that you don't know. There are a lot of you guys in the globe that talk a lot of mess, and you don't know what the hell you talking about. We mention things to you. You don't know these speeds that we bring up. This is something that David Weiss talks about. You don't know these sizes that we mention of this realm that we live on, right? But we're not making these things up. We're giving you your model. We're giving you the globe model that you gave us, right? And so you're looking at us crazy, but newsflash, y'all, we learned the same thing. We learned the same trash that you learned in school. Some of us some of us are more educated, classically trained than many of you in the globe community. And I'm not trying to brag about that at all. I'm just letting you know some of us are more institutionalized than you may have been, right? But it's a difficult thing. You don't know how hard it is to actually change. You don't understand how much pain that is in your head to change your mind. That's a powerful thing, just to change your mind for something that you've been taught for close to 40 years or for 40 years. Just to change your mind and say, "I was wrong." Just to say that you were wrong, or just to utter those words, is powerful. And if you can't see that us changing, whether you agree with our change or not, is something of note. That's something that you should be mindful of. Whether you think we're geniuses or whether you think we're sick, that's something that you should take note of. And instead of talking shit to us, maybe you should say, "What is it that I'm not seeing that you're seeing for you to say such a thing?" Because you sound coherent, you sound like you're living a pretty decent life. You don't sound like you don't seem as if you're off your rocker. What is it that you're seeing that I'm not seeing? Because I don't see what you're seeing. Show me. And it's just a step that you're taking. You know what I'm saying? And we're not going to cuss you out. We're not going to talk bad at you about anything. If you don't know, you don't know. And that's all right, man. Because we're all here. We're all here to help each other. We're not really enemies. You know what I'm saying? You of the globe, us of the true earth. We were of the globe at one time too. Some of us needed some prying from that ball away from the death grip that we had on the ball. Some of us weren't ready to change. But like I said, it's a powerful thing. And so instead of talking crap to us, like a lot of Professor Phil and I am Wilson, you guys is in there just your beak is just going off. You know what I'm saying? And so that's cool. But instead of talking this mess, look at the experiments. Ask us some questions. And we ain't going to talk crap to you and be like, we told you so, we told you so. No, we want you to see what it is we're seeing. And we welcome you with open arms if you're willing to look, if you're willing to look at something different. And I'm not just saying you need to change. I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is be honest and just look. Be honest with what it is you see instead of, oh, well, compared to these math numbers, listen, here's the thing. They're going to lie to you about the math. That's what they're going to do, man. And so guys like Taboo Conspiracy 3, you have institutions like FE Core that go out there and they perform these experiments over and over and over again. And you want to know something? The earth that God created is what's here. That's what you see is what you get. Except for when the weather changes and you might see something a little bit different based off of what the atmosphere is giving you. What you see is what you get, time and time again. You've got these guys that conduct these laser experiments. And how many times do we have to say, look at this guy's laser experiment? Look at this guy's view from this mountain and seeing those mountains at this distance. It shouldn't be possible based off of the math that was given to not just you, but to us as well. So based off of that math, your globe doesn't work. It doesn't function. And not only that, I'll go a step further. Your globe doesn't move, because if it was moving and doing all the other things that you claim that it's doing, those stars that are in the sky would be different every single time. And so if you go into school, if you're taking an astronomy class and they're trying to help you explain or trying to help you understand these things that are clearly false, trying to beat into your head something that isn't true and you're not getting it because it doesn't make any sense. Like David Weiss says, you're not stupid. It's stupid. You know what I'm saying? Time and time again, Dave Weiss has been saying that. You're not the one that's stupid. It's stupid. I've got a shirt. It even says it. You know what I'm saying? So you're not the one that's stupid. They're the ones that are lying to you. They're the ones that are basically poking and prodding at you to see how far you're going to take this nonsense. And here we are. Who would have thought that in 2024, the weights are starting to shift a little bit? It's starting to shift and it's starting to show a whole different reality. That what we once thought was a ball is flat and everything else is starting to follow. And here's the thing. People are shaking in their boots because of it. I don't know if you're familiar, but TikTok is now being sued by the states, individual states. It's not just TikTok versus the United States. It's now, for example, TikTok versus New York, TikTok versus South Dakota, TikTok versus Nebraska. TikTok is in for the fight of its life just for the freedom to express and just for the freedom of speech. That should make you think about something. A lot of it is because of what we're giving you guys. A lot of it is because of this community at large. We're coming out with the truth, and the truth is coming out so hot and so fast. Like, many of you ain't ready. A lot of y'all ain't ready. You're not ready. And it's evident in the questions that you're asking. But like I said, man, if you don't know, you don't know. It's okay to ask questions. There are good people here, and we're not going to ridicule you. We're not going to call you stupid. We want you to see things kind of like how we see it, with your own stink on it. I land my plane with that.
Yeah, let me just chime in real quick. The way I just kind of look at it, it's a big spectrum, right? The people on one end of the spectrum, we have to believe that they are deliberately, like, the world is in reality flat. Okay, the world is level, right? And everything that we have come to understand about it is completely different from what they have presented. And so we didn't accidentally get here in our understanding. They deliberately have lied to us. So there are a group of people who understand what this reality is, and they actually worked all the numbers. So they're like, they know how we look at things optically. They know they've been crunching the numbers, and they've been doing things to really, like, create this like globe Earth, you know, that they've like evolved over time, and they're kind of like, you know, fudging around with it. You know, maybe it was the sun was like, you know, 2 million miles away, and then it became like, you know, 5 million miles away, and then 15 million miles, and then they settled at 93. Okay, it's far enough now, and the stars, you know, is so far away, and then scaling and stuff like this. So they fudge the things around, so it's more or less, you know, like a couple layers deep is like enough. You know, things are holding together more or less, like in the way in which they're working. So we understand that they know what reality is, but they have twisted it for whatever reason. And you can say it's because they want to make money, because they want to hide God. It doesn't matter. They're just lying to us, right? And then there are people who are like locked in to this, right? That, you know, they have bought into it, hook, line, and sinker. You know who they are. They are the professor types. They're the, you know, NASA fanboy types. They're the people who are like, oh, we went to space, and, you know, we landed on the moon and stuff like this. So they're not going to be changing their tunes, you know, no pun intended, but like anytime soon. Right. And then there are the people who are on the internet, and then maybe they genuinely believe what they believe. Like, this is something that we talked about before, or they maybe in the back of their mind that they're probably like, well, these guys have a good argument, but, you know, like I'm in a pretty good position. I have a big channel, you know, I can push this globe Earth model, and then, you know, I'm going to get the support that I'm going to get doing this. So I don't know why they are doing what they're doing. I don't know what their motivating factor is. Maybe they were caught doing something. I don't know. I can only speculate about it. But all I know is that these people are diametrically opposed to in the direction in which I'm going. I have to consider them enemies, right? And so in the game of war, as you know, that there are all kinds of tactics being used. And the first and foremost is the mental, emotional warfare that we have to be working with. And this is the space in which we do it. If it got to a point where we're like, you know, getting the swords out in the game, it's already like game over at that point. They need to hold everybody down and then be like, okay, you know, we need to convince you that the reality is something different. But if it got to a point where people are actually like, you know, holding guns and shooting at each other, man, that's going to be another level of chaos, and nobody's going to care about the flat Earth cosmology at that point. Okay, you got bullets flying over your head, right?
Well, I was just going to say, you know, to me, it looks like the modern society, it seems to be, there's not much holding it together at this point. It's like flimsy. It's like duct tape holding it together. And, you know, this flat Earth topic is just the kind of thing that could tip the whole thing over. So they can't go back on it now. They can't say, look, we faked the moon landings, guys. You know, they can't. You know, it's like once you lie, once you're in too deep, you can't go back. There's no turning back. So they had, I agree with you, Natch, they had to have made a decision a long time ago. Now, it's possible that some ancient, like they say the ancient Greeks postulated a globe Earth, okay? Even before they postulated heliocentrism, they postulated the globe. It was just a geocentric globe. And then the heliocentric model came by more with the Copernican, you know, revolution some 500 years ago, give or take. But this idea of a globe, they say, goes back to the ancient Greeks. Okay, well, look, can we trust history as presented? Of course not. But let's just use it as an argument. Okay, let's just say the Greeks at some point in antiquity saw boats going, you know, into the horizon and thought that it was actually going over a physical horizon. Okay, let's say that happened. Let's say that, you know, Aristophanes actually did his observation and saw that the shadows were different at, you know, 400 or 500 miles apart, and postulated a globe Earth. That's possible. Okay. They may have had a theoretical conceptual understanding of a globe, but at some point, science had to have realized that that was debunked, you know, at least in the mid 1800s when the first flat earthers came out, like Parallax or, you know, Robotham, and said, this doesn't hold up. We're not, you know, we have technology now. We have telescopes and we have more advanced understanding. And we're examining this. and we're finding that it doesn't hold up, right? And people are saying, this doesn't even hold up to logical scrutiny. So whether it was a deception from the beginning or maybe a mistake, a theoretical concept that turned out not to be true, at some point there was a deception instituted and carried out. There was decisions made to institute this deception. That's the importance, because people say constantly, what does it matter? What's the fucking shape of the earth matter? That's the point, is that at some point somebody lied to you, and not just in a small way. They instituted a massive organized conspiracy to deceive you about where you live. That's really what it comes down to. So that's also what most people can't get past, because what they'll do is they'll reject the evidence that's presented to them. They'll reject when you say, look, here's a camera, you could zoom in, that boat didn't go over anything, Or if you present to them, on Navy ships, there's a ballistic weapon called a rail gun. And it shoots like 100 nautical miles line of sight. You see what I mean? So it shows that the globe is physically impossible. Not to mention electromagnetic propagation, not to mention the long distance observations, not to mention all the, physics that show that the globe is impossible. My point is, even when presented with all this evidence, they'll reject it because they can't get past how large the deception is. So they'll default to a mindset that says, well, so many people would have to be in on it, and how could that possibly be? You're right. How could that possibly be? It strains credibility. But guess what? Somehow it was instituted. Somehow they perpetrated this lie on us, right? And again, once you get past the book, your pre-indoctrinated bookends, you might be able to see how they do that. Start to conjecture. Say, well, if this is a spiritual realm, if we're really talking about angels and demons and shit like that, and fallen ones, energetic beings that are interacting with us in ways that we really don't understand, once you look at a spiritual world, you can start to see the deception. You can start to see if there's a force here to deceive us for whatever reason. It starts to make sense, because it then goes beyond mere mortals at that point. And you can understand what we're actually dealing with here. And you can start to understand how this could be perpetrated. Because the reasonable mind understands. Like, okay, if everything that you guys are saying is true, you flat earthers, that means all the governments are in on it. So right away you realize that this idea of independent nations that are somehow, maneuvering in some geopolitical environment really goes out the window if they're all colluding on the space lie. So once you understand that, then you have to come to grip with all these realities that go against the very core concepts that form our identity. And that's what it really is because once you're basically presented with this type of operant classical conditioning from birth, you begin to identify with a certain persona, a persona that was created for you through the system. You then base your identity, your self-worth, and your whole mental concept of self on the persona. So when somebody presents information to you that in some way contradicts your indoctrination, you'll reject it from an emotional level. And that's why we consistently get these emotional questions and the emotional responses from people who are new to the subject, is because they're basically dealing with it from a very base level, a level that is almost like an instinctual level, because to go against consensus as a human, because we're social and communal beings, is actually a threat to one's survival. Okay? I mean, look at all the flat earthers who lose their jobs, lose their marriages, lose their friends, become ostracized from their community. See, there's consequences there. So what will happen is they play on these base emotions that make us human. They exploit and manipulate these so that when you're faced with a logical paradigm that you can't get past, or a cognitive dissonance that you can't get past, you'll revert to consensus because it's comfortable and it's safe and it's rewarded. But it doesn't make the lie true. It's still a lie. A lie is going to be a lie. And the truth is always going to be the truth. Your interpretation of it may change. But that's what I think they do, is they play on our base emotions so that people will reject overwhelming information that contradicts their indoctrination. And I think that's the problem. And that's why you can have all these prominent astrophysics and these doctors, and they'll sit there with a straight face and believe the stuff that they're saying. You know, it's not like you have like a science professor, it's a major university, that is lying to everybody. They're just indoctrinated more so than anybody, you know, and that's just the way it works. And again, it's rewarded. I've had people, globies, come on, you know, and discourse with me, and they'll just say, well, you know, yeah, I'm a professor at, you know, some university. It pays really well, you know. Or I had another person who said they were a flat earther, but then they went back to the globe. One of the few people who said that to me. And you know what they said to me? They said, their quote, I'll basically paraphrase, was that the flat earth wasn't doing anything for me. It was causing problems for me. So therefore I rejected it. So not addressing, you know, the truth of it or the falsehood of it, but just the utility in their life, as if that fucking matters. That doesn't matter really. That doesn't change anything. So this is what we're up against. And this is why they can't attack our arguments. So they're going to basically use all kinds of, let's say, manipulation tactics, much like you would see with somebody who's, let's say, evidencing like a personality disorder. That's the gaslighting. They make you question your own reality. They ridicule, they mock. Again, it's infantile, it's childish and sophomoric, because when you really break the argument down using logic, reasoning, and our own God-given discernment, the things that we embrace, the things that we accept about this earth cannot be argued against, plain and simple. So once you take away those emotional appeals, the globe is left with nothing. That's why nobody really in society defends the globe. You have 5 prominent anti-flat earthers that are here online that are just shameless enough to come on here and do what they're doing over and over and over again, whatever their personality type is. And that's it. They're not talking about it on the news. They're just dismissing us. And here's another point that I always like to bring up. Whether or not we're all crazy as like flat earthers, what you can't deny is how many of us there are now. So why do we not have a voice in popular media and popular culture? Why is this not a discussion on the mainstream platforms? Why is nobody in quote unquote science defending the globe? They just have to ignore us. They just have to misrepresent our position over and over and over again, but they're not addressing it. That should tell people something right there. This idea that they won't even address it, that has to show you something, because what you can't deny is there's millions and millions of us right now who have a particular understanding of this reality that's being completely ignored by the mainstream. It's being censored here online on multiple platforms through multiple means. That says almost more than anything else right there. And to anybody with a rational mind, that should tell you something.
Damn, Skippy.
Yeah. All right, gentlemen. So where do we go from here? We talked about Antarctica and some of the shenanigans that is potentially coming around the corner, and really the elections coming up in less than a month. Not to talk about the elections too much, but a lot of Americans' minds are there as well. So I mean, there's no shortage of all kinds of psychological operation that is being conducted on humanity. But where do you want to go? You were talking about maps earlier as well, Vlad, right?
Oh
Maps.
man, oh, yo, oh my goodness. So I went to visit the Urbano Monte Mapamundi 1587 joint out in Stanford University, right? Man, that thing, let me tell you something. So tomorrow is going to be my show. I'm going to tell it in more detail there.
It's
But
big, right? It's like real big. It's because it's multiple parts. It's huge.
man, it is a 10-foot by 10-foot
Right.
map that is actually divvied up into, there are 100. So with the book itself, right? Because it's in a book, there are 149 individual leaves of paper or individual leaves of whatever it is. I don't know. It's like some old corduroy skin. I don't know. Weird parchment on the outside, right? Some animal skin. Um, and the inside is these papers, 149 of them total. And then you start to open it up, and it's like you have to be really careful. So when I got to the Rumsey place, Rumsey's library, which the guy's still alive, by the way, right? I'm thinking this dude is dead, but he's I guess one of these financiers or something like that to Stanford University. And instead of just money, from what I understand, he gives them maps. He gave them like a grand total of like 130 plus maps, 130,000, excuse me, 130,000 maps and atlases and stuff. So I'm in there looking at this dang map, and it's everything I thought it would be. Crazy, right? Not what I thought everything I thought it was going to be, not what I thought it was going to be. And so I was ready for it. I was like, oh wow, I didn't expect this. And so I'm going through the map, and there are so many things. So I went there with questions. I left there with more questions, which I thought was phenomenal, because I was like, wow, the map that we see on the Rumsey site, when you go to the Rumsey site and they give you the digital map and the breakdown of it, it doesn't do it justice. Even though you could zoom in and you could see the intricacies and everything within the meridians and everything else like that. Reading that map, breaking it down, it doesn't tell me why there are 36 individual meridians, right? Meanwhile, if you look at whether it's the CS Hammond map that everybody's used to, that's in the big giant atlas, or you're looking at Gleason's map, those are 24 individual meridians, which that could be read like a clock, right? Every 15 degrees is 1 hour.
Right.
So I'm looking at Monty's map, and I'm looking at it and I'm like, okay, they didn't use it to tell time, because on Gleason's map, he clearly states, hey, this could be used to tell time and everything else. So it's a tool. The Gleason's map is a tool of sorts. Monty's map, I believe, is a tool as well, but it's not used in the same kind of manner, right? And so what I found in there were a bunch of things gone, removed, missing. I'm going to show you guys tomorrow what I'm talking about, but there's so many things that they're not showing you in the digital copy that it's like, what the hell is that? Why is it there? And then 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 they don't talk about that at all. And then why is this erased? Why is this cut out? Why is this missing? Because on the map that we're seeing digitally, that doesn't appear at all. But in real life, it's a totally different story. So my thing is, it taught me a good lesson in this. We could see whatever the hell we want to see on a computer, in a book, whatever. Until you're there to see it in person, you don't know what it is you're looking at. You have no idea. So then, while I was sitting there, and the thing is, when I got there, looking at the map, I asked for like 5 other maps, right? And they brought out 5 other maps, and they were good maps, old maps and stuff, but all of them were basically much the same, azimuthal equidistant maps. And I'm like, all right, that's cool. This is a German guy that made it. This is another American guy that made it. Basically the same thing. But the Monty map was the map of maps, right? And the amount of detail and care, like I mentioned to the viewers, the amount of detail and care that he put into making this map is extraordinary. One of the things I said, and I'm going to go with it, right, is that it looks as if he made this map by hand. He didn't use like any specific tools or anything. Like, you could look at it and you could see that it was hand drawn, like without any, like, many straight edges or something, like a pacifier to help make his parallels and stuff. And I was like, wow, this guy, he took good time in making this map. But there's that, but there's also the stuff in the South Pole. That's the southern regions, right? There's a lot of that stuff. And of course you could see it on the map that we see digitally, but like seeing it in person, there's a lot.
Well, the other thing I wanted to say about the Monty map is beyond being like a map, which is, a projection of latitude and longitude, this one happens to be, like you said, an azimuthal equidistant map. But beyond that, it tells a story. He shows the different kings in the armadas, and you see the ships, right? And he has the kings in the key, and so he's telling you, oh, this was the, this Persian king, this Portuguese king, whatever, right? And then you see in the different land masses, he has these different animals, different humanoids and things represented. It's a story. Like he's giving you a visual, he's presenting you with something, again, with these, there's strange sea monsters that he has, or these monster, birds that are bigger than elephants. There's one that's a bird carrying an elephant. So there's a story that he's telling us with this beyond just the map. And that's why I think I'm so intrigued with it too. And why so many people are, because it's really a work of art in so many ways also.
Yes. That's exactly what if you saw my series, I guess it turned into a series on its own. I did the outside perimeters, those small little triangles within each meridian. I translated them, and it was like an 8-part. It ended up becoming an 8-part series, right? And within the map, one thing I noticed is that in the southern regions, he doesn't really talk too much about it, because apparently the sailors at those times had some exposure, but they didn't have much exposure to the southern regions. And you could tell by how he made the map. So you have places that get a lot more attention because they're dotted out with cities, and the cities are denoted with the cities, or the villages, or the little villas and stuff are denoted with these small little red circles that have like little huts and stuff sticking out of them. And like the further north you go, the more you see those things, the more the prevalent, until you flip it around and then you start heading south, and then they're like really not there. But here's the crazy part, is those creatures that you're talking about. So you have things like, you have like dragons, you have what looks like a Jersey devil, you have so many griffins, like griffins. They're all over the map. It's crazy, right? You have cyclops, you have giants, right? Like in Patagonia means Bigfoot. You have giants, you have so many places where they talk about the Tartars, Tartary, this up greater Tartar, lesser Tartar. This is how the Tartars move. There are nomadic people. And the thing is when he talks about the things that I just mentioned, he speaks about them as if, oh yeah, everybody knows they're Cyclops. Like, you don't go there. They're Cyclops there. They'll eat you. They're known to eat people. There are wild people over there. They wear animal skins. They look like Fred Flintstones. I swear to you, they wore animal skins in the pictures. They wore animal skins, had a club in their hand, fighting what looks like a Jersey devil or a dragon, right? And he'll talk about, oh, right here, griffins live here. They have a bad attitude. Don't mess with them. They're usually white in color. They're right there next to the Arctic Circle. And so every other quadruped within this region tends to be white in color. It's mind-boggling, that map. And
Right.
yeah, looks like
Well,
Lowry's also seen it. And I don't want to give too much away, but yeah.
well, you think about it. I mean, think about, let's juxtapose that map with the common presentation of history, right? First of all, we're not taught about those creatures at all. We're taught about dinosaurs that existed 63 million years ago. And then there was this so slow progression to this like newer age, what we see now. But think about what he's presenting there, you know? So what does that really tell us about our history? You know, I often say, we really don't know much beyond the mid 1800s. You know, once you get past X amount of generations, whether it's 3, 4, 5, 6 generations, it's very, very, very hard to know what the history actually is. You know, especially when you have an understanding of the deception. Again, if we know that we have these secret societies, these occult brotherhoods that seem to be running things, these mystery schools, then we can understand that there was some degree of collusion to perpetrate a deception.
Yep.
Now, it appears as though that deception goes very, very, very deep and it's expansive, because what the understanding is that it appears that our history is much different and much more recent. So they tell us, oh, there was a cataclysm 12,000 years ago. Okay. Some people will associate that with the flood of Noah. And then you see gradually climbing out of that a recorded history that goes back about 6,000 years, starting with the Chaldeans, you know, the so-called Babylonians. But when you really incorporate what's the evidence for this history, it really falls short. So then you have to question, what was this cataclysm? What were these cultures all around the world really? What were these different beings, these creatures, you know, these humanoids, whatever you want to call them? And is it possible that the timeline is much more truncated, that this cataclysm, this worldwide cataclysm may be much, much, much more recent than we've been presented with? Maybe they're cyclical. Maybe they happen at some frequency. So again, it flips the concept of the history we're presented completely on its head, you know? So why should we believe that history? Again, just like why should we believe what they told us about, you know, in science, about the micro and the macro? Why should we believe the history, especially if there's no evidence to support it? You know, they tell us, we all have it in our mind, a belief that there was a being named Christ, and he lived about 2,000 years ago. Well, what if there was a being that was named Christ, but it was much more recent? You know what I mean?
Yep.
What if we were told about somebody named Moses, who apparently history tells us was born in like somewhere around 1300 BC or 1400 BC. All right. 1500, somewhere around there. That's, you know, when they put the Moses timeline together. Well, what if there was this person, what if this was much more recent? We don't know the timeline.
According to the Quran, like Jesus and Moses were related, and they are like really close to each other. Like according to the Quran, and like Moses is like the uncle of Jesus and stuff like this. And you know, I go into this kind of alternative historical research, and Anatoly Fomenko, he talks about how history has been obfuscated, and basically 1150 years been injected into our current timeline. So we are in somewhere like 800 and like 75, after Jesus, year 875 after Jesus, not 2024. There are problems with Gregorian calendar and Julian calendar. It's another way to kind of like confuse,
Yes.
where we are. And another point that I really wanted to make is that we have noticed that there's a thing, another tactic that they use is called backdating. So what they're doing is basically with newspapers and books, they print them in early 1900s with regular printing presses, and they're backdating them to 1700s and 1800s and claiming that these books are actually coming from that time, when in fact they were actually printed much later. And I suspect that they're doing something similar to the maps as well. Just keep that in mind.
Wow. Wow. Now, being out of time, totally, because now you see the Ethiopians got their own clock, they have their own calendar. The Jews, like in Israel and stuff like that, the Orthodox Jews have their own calendar. You have the Chinese have their own calendar. They have their own time as of when we are. And I'm just like, we don't know we don't know when the hell we are. We don't know when the hell we are. So what does that imply, right? So this is something that I spoke to my audience about, that what is it that we're missing as a people? What is it that we cannot do, or that we can't do based on the fact that we don't even know when we are? Think of the things that could have possibly been possible if we knew when we are. I don't know. You don't know. Nobody knows. How much healthier could we be? How much more longer could we live? Right? How much more would we understand about ourselves, about our bodies? People, here's the reality, man. Most people don't even know themselves. They don't know themselves spiritually. They don't know themselves physically. How much are we missing because we don't know when? Just something as when. We don't even know.
And it's another example how people, they'll just speak of these things as if they're fact. They'll start talking about the ancient Romans, the ancient Greeks, the Babylonians. They'll give timelines, and people speak of it as if we know it.
They were there, right? Oh, yeah, right. Yeah. Everybody knows the Babylonians. Yeah.
Yeah. Although we know, of course, when the Babylon, and then when the pyramids were built and all these things, because again, it was presented. Somebody told them, and they just, they're just absorbing what they were told. But again, where's the evidence? Is the evidence really there for these things? What if the evidence shows something else completely contrary? Again, that's the emotional response. So I keep saying it really comes down to, are you courageous enough? To me, it's a spiritual courage to embrace understandings that are so deeply ingrained in you, or that go against such deeply ingrained beliefs. Can you do that? Because think about it. I mean, religion is the top of the list. Religion's the biggest conditioning that we all get, because it taps into something that's fundamental to us. This feeling that we have inside, this connection to something greater than us, something greater than the mere physical. Mm-hmm. So what do we get? We get presented with religions from when we're very, very young. We're born, we're raised in these religious communities. And then you have somebody maybe giving you different information that goes against that. And that's very challenging. A lot of my research lately has been into the Old Testament, which was called the Tanakh. And when you go through the Old Testament with a certain understanding, or maybe free from a certain bias, it tells a story that is, let's say, very different than the religions that surround it. Okay. And that's putting it lightly. When you really examine these texts and you look at them, and then you have to really question, well, okay, I was presented, I believe certain things, but when I'm investigating the scriptures behind these religions, the orthodoxy based around these scriptures, there seems to be another story that's coming up. What about the scriptures that they left out of it? Conspicuously left out. What about the mistranslations? What about all the different translations? What about the changes that were made along? So when you start to put the pieces together, you start to realize that, oh, well, I might have to challenge my belief set here. Who is Christ really? What does it mean when they tell me about Noah and his sons? What is the lineage of Jacob, Israel, and his sons and the 12 tribes that were the lineage of Jacob? What is it saying? What is the story they're saying? Because this is a very elaborate story in that Bible. It talks about where they went, who they were, what they looked like, who their kings were, different technology they had, their culture, their beliefs, the gods that they worshipped. What are they really telling us in these things? Are we to look at this, as it's presented, or is there something we're to interpret from this? The story of the fall of man, the Garden of Eden. What does that mean? This Adam and Eve and their progeny. So we're presented with a doctrine. People incorporate that. So when somebody says God, if you're Catholic, like I was raised Catholic, God's going to mean something to you. If you were raised in a Hindu, let's say, culture, God's going to mean something else to you, or Buddhist or Muslim. That God means different things to all of us. So we all can't be right, So when you get past the indoctrination, what is it really telling us? We don't really know. But again, people will revert back to what's comfortable and what's enforced and what's accepted. So if you try to say to them, hey, maybe this Christ figure wasn't crucified on a cross. Maybe there was a different story about this Christ. Maybe his life was different. Are you willing to maybe investigate that? You were presented with this, but what about this over here that has a different story? You have an idea, if you're a Jewish person, who this Moses is, or who these revered figures are from the, Israelite and Jewish traditions. What are they really? Who are they really? We're never going to know, but can you challenge what was taught to you? Are you okay with it? Even to do it intellectually, you don't even have to talk about it, but can you embrace that in your own consciousness? Can you incorporate new information to come to a new understanding? And it's not easy. That's the thing, because this is the insidious part of the lie, the deception that's being perpetrated, is that when we form, our physiology and our anatomy, we have a critical development period as children up into adolescence, that we are able to absorb information. That information then becomes calcified in a lot of ways, even physiologically. These neural pathways are developed through constant stimulus response. So you build a physiologic structure that informs basically the hardware of your thinking and even your consciousness. In a lot of ways, I think that hardware is always going to be there. Your personality forms, your beliefs form your identity and your concept of the world. This becomes in some ways intractable or very intractable. And I think that's why it's so hard to incorporate new information and to come to new understandings, new belief sets. And I think they know this, and that's why there's such an effort into the indoctrination. Because once you indoctrinate a consciousness and a mind, you basically have that person in so many ways. It becomes very, very, very difficult to alter somebody from that course once they've been set on it. And this can be proven, this can be proven with, we develop in ways when we're young, we have abilities that are just not there into adulthood. I mean, look at a language. You can take any kid, even of average intelligence, and you can place them in certain environments. They'll become multilingual easily. If you take a Spanish child, like where I live, there's a lot of Mexicans near me. This is where I live. The kids that come here, their parents don't know. Their parents might know 100 English words, just enough to basically get along through their day. But their kids are perfectly fluent in both Spanish and English. They just naturally learned it just from their environment. You can teach a kid 6 languages easy. I'm a 46-year-old man. I know English. That's it. I've tried to learn other languages. I can't do it. The energy for me to even basically converse in Spanish, it's too much for me to learn. Does that make me stupid? No, because if you tried to teach me Spanish when I was 2 years old, I'd be fluent in it. So there's an ability we have that I think is known by the controllers, and I think it's exploited. It's like that saying from psychology is that, you give me, a young child, and I'll turn them into anything I want, you know? And so this is what we're up against at this point. Some people seem to have the ability to challenge their preconceptions. The people that resonate around these communities, they have an ability to challenge their preconceptions. I don't know what it is. There seems to be a commonality amongst people who resonate around these things. A lot of it is you see people who come from traumatic backgrounds, something about trauma, something. They usually work with the black sheep of their family. They may be imbued with something spiritually that we don't know about. I don't know, but there's something that enables certain people to see things that other people simply can't or refuse to do so. It's beyond me to know what that is, but that's becoming more and more clear to me with these things. It's like you were saying earlier, Vlad. It's like some people you can show certain information and they'll go, "Oh my God, I get what you're saying. Wow." Other people, it's like they can't see it. I can't figure out what the difference is. I don't think it's intelligence. Maybe it's intelligence. Again, maybe it's a spiritual thing. More and more, I actually think it's a spiritual thing. But whatever it is, so this I think that's what we're up against here. Is the indoctrination. How do you get? I can't get. There's things about me that I know I can't change, that I constantly default. I have to almost like reboot myself sometimes because I'll just revert back in my mind to my beliefs of history, like we were saying. Yeah. I'll still have it in my head. Oh, Jesus existed 2,000 years ago. No, maybe not. So again, these are the strong influences that we're up against. So for us, people who come out here, they present themselves in a vulnerable way. And what I had to learn over the years is that the people that are throwing the slings and arrows at me, as time goes on, they hurt me less and less. They really do. In the beginning, it would hurt. It would hurt to see the comments. It would hurt to see people make hit videos on me, say lies about me. That's less and less of an issue for me. But that's throughout time. So anybody who is, listening to this stream now, and you may be new or you may be, in a certain place with this, just realize that there's this is a process. And that the more you engage in the process, the more you'll become comfortable in like who you are, the things that you accept about this world, and you become comfortable with yourself, and with community, it makes it easier because I could be in my head all day about stuff, right? But I can come online and participate in a stream like this, and right away I'm leveled out. I feel normal. I feel sane. You know what I mean? I feel accepted in a way where maybe all day I was not feeling like that. So that's the part about community. And that's why they're so intent on dividing us, gaslighting us, making us look stupid, like we're all nuts, censoring us, playing these games. Just the censor game alone, I watched what it did to the flat earth community, because once you censor the community and you basically shadow ban it and other things, you've now created a plantation. And what do we know about plantation mentality? It's divide and conquer. Mm-hmm. It's who's going to tell master this. Oh, I saw this person doing this. And the next thing you know, you're all fighting amongst yourselves. You're basically a bunch of indentured people keeping yourselves down as you have these elites over top of you basically controlling the whole show. And I see it happen here. Because the flat earth community wouldn't be nearly the shit show it is without the censorship. Because people would be able to come on here and do this. They might be able to make a living of it. You'd probably have a number of flat earthers who'd be able to come on here and make this their lifestyle. And imagine what that would look like. Compare that to what we're looking at now, where it's like you see what's happening here, especially the people who want to make this their living and maybe are a little bit, more compromised, and they're just at each other's necks constantly, and I think a lot of that is a consequence of the censorship. So this is where I am right now. This is how I'm navigating my experience here. A lot of it is to set my ego aside and just, if you don't have the love of the game, you can't do this. You got to have the love of the game, because eventually you're going to close your channel down. You mentioned somebody earlier, Vlad, when we started off, and I didn't want to tell you, but they're shutting their channel down. You know what I mean? And you know, they're married, and I don't even want to conjecture why they're doing it, but I could imagine that they just don't have the time and energy to put into this without the reward. You know, whatever that reward is,
Right.
even if it's just growing your channel as a reward, which is a reward in and of itself, or financial, whatever it is. So if you don't have the love of the game and the love of the truth, there's no way you can do this. I had to learn this.
Yeah, like it's tough. Like there's no money in this. And you just have to have that passion for it and really just telling the truth, because yes, telling the truth is easy once you get into the groove of it. It's an easy thing to do. But being honest with yourself is one of the harder things. Being honest with what you're hearing, what you're seeing, and comparing that to what you were taught originally, and being able to admit, hey, I was fooled, I was lied to. It's a hard thing to do. You know what I'm saying? And what it is it's kind of like, I equate it a little bit to juggling. So one of the things, I learned how to juggle late in life. I was like 35 years old, right? I was on deployment in Spain. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to learn how to juggle. I was like, I can catch a football. I'm super athletic. I could do all sorts of great stuff. I have to teach myself how to juggle, because it don't make no sense how I could see a 5-year-old child over there juggling. Meanwhile, they have half the sense I do, or at least I think, right? So it took me like a grand total of 7 hours to juggle. This is what I learned. Not only how to juggle, which I guess that's the byproduct of it, but the reason I didn't know how to juggle was because I was so concerned with what everybody else was thinking with me dropping a ball. That's all it was. And the thing is, I was in the room by myself. So nobody was out there watching me juggle. Each time I dropped the ball, I felt a little bit of shame. I was like, damn, man, I dropped it. You know what I'm saying? And so do you know how to juggle?
I do, yeah. I could juggle 3 balls.
Okay,
So
and that's all I
juggling.
got. Hey,
Yeah.
that's all I got. 3 balls, 3 bananas, 3 kiwis, whatever.
Right. I could do that. I can do that. Yep.
But if you ask any layperson, hey, do you know how to juggle? They might say no. And then you could ask them, have you ever attempted to learn how to juggle? They might say, more than likely, they'll say, yeah, I tried it a few times. Why did you stop? Nobody had a gun to their head. Why did you stop? You know what? It was that lack of confidence. So basically, I'm saying all that to say this. I think a lot of folks, there are many folks, probably more than we know, that see the truth. They might get a quick glimpse of this truth, and they're like, it makes sense. But then once they see all the arrows and the rocks and all the backlash that we're getting, they're like, that's not what I want. I don't want that smoke. So then it's easy to go back up. It's a globe. It's a globe. Damn right, it's a globe. It's a globe all day, right?
Yeah.
And so that's all they know. That's all they want to know. They see us getting battered. I'll tell you, man, at my previous place of employment, I was getting battered all day for just being the flat earth guy, right? But the thing is I was credentialed. I'd done things in this life that all of them had never did.
Right.
And so my thing is, it's like, hey, I've got these experiences. I'm not just stupid. And you guys hired me for a particular skill. Like, I'm very well qualified in what I do. Do you think I'm just a crazy nut off the street that believes that the earth is something other than what you believe? And so these are challenging times, right? And to me, it just showed me when I was getting all that flack that I'm in the right place, because you mentioned something of comfort. And getting someplace, getting from point A to point B for the first time ever, a lot of times, yes, they say it's the journey and everything else, but it's uncomfortable because you're not familiar. You're not familiar with the path. You're not familiar with the directions. Hell, you might be 5 feet from the place and you won't even know that it's there. You'll turn the music down and you'll be like, all right, man, GPS is saying this. It's supposed to be here, but there's nothing here. Why am I not seeing it? Where am I? What am I doing? You turn the music down. You like open your eyes much bigger just to look around to see if you're in the right space. Getting into the flat earth community is no different. It's no different. There are those of us, and we might know them, that have seen what we've presented to them. And yeah, but I can't just believe that the earth is flat. I just can't.
Right.
What you're saying makes all the sense in the world, but I just can't believe that it's flat. It doesn't. But I just saw Star Trek the other day. What do you mean it's flat? It doesn't make no sense. I just saw Battlestar Galactica, man. That's my favorite show. So what does that mean? And then you know what? After your discussion, they go back to who they were, and they don't have a problem. And to them, and like I find that telling, because it's like, yo, here I am presenting to you the truth. Here I am presenting to you something that can potentially change the direction of whatever trajectory your life is headed in now. And you're just throwing it all away. You're not giving yourself a chance. You're not giving your mind a chance. You're not giving your future a chance. You're just throwing it all away because of your comfort, because of your reality now. It's good enough. It seems to work right now. But what if you come across a sticking point to where you need what I gave you? You need this information. Now it's the time where you need this information. When you come across that sticking point, you totally forgot about everything I just gave you. You totally disregarded the information, like some good information that was given to you. And now you're at this point in your life to where you're like, oh my God, what do I do now? Well,
that
here's the thing.
Yeah.
Exactly. Here
I was
it
going to say
is.
that brings us back to the 2020 thing that we were talking about earlier, man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And we were
it's when the rubber hits the road in that moment where things hit that point, you know, that focal point or that fulcrum, and that's where it matters. You know what I mean? Where people of a certain mindset were able to see things one way, and people of the other mindset, well, they were just going along to get along with everything, and there was consequences, real world, immediate consequences. You know, and it's like that's why I think it's a spiritual thing, 100%.
Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
know it was I'm sorry, go ahead, Natch.
No, I just want to say that I think we're thinking about winding it down.
Oh,
So I
yeah.
do want to give the mic to you, but I just want to say to everybody, like, hey, it's been like really a great conversation, and we're gonna have more of these conversations in the coming days. You know, what I mean, like, there's going to be a lot of things to talk about, a lot of content that's going to be out there in terms of like the final experiment, flat Earth cosmology, alternative history, and theology. All these topics that we are very much interested in. And there are more topics within the flat earth cosmology. Somebody has mentioned about the upward vector saying that's something that I'm getting into and I want to talk about, so that's something that we'll save for next time in our conversation. But do you have any final thoughts that you want to share with us before we close it for today?
I'm basically I'm going to save those for tomorrow. However, what I do want to give to you guys is this right here. So that is a link to the Antiquity team. We're not sitting there talking shit. We ain't sitting there fucking off. Excuse my language. But we're actually taking the reins and we are rebuilding, as I mentioned earlier, the Antiquity mechanism. So that's right there in the chat that I just sent y'all to the Telegram team for the Antiquity mechanism. Now, you don't have to be anything special or anything like that, or be super duper this. What we need those with ideas, right? We need those that can bring something to the table, right? Some group, we want people that are ready to do something, to work for an effort. This is for the future. This isn't for us to just make an experiment, but we see value in this. You understand what I'm saying? And so get in where you fit in. I just went ahead and I put that in there for you guys. If you want to get in where you fit in, because there is a place for you. There is something that you can bring of value to our table, and we're open to all hands. I'm calling on all hands for this effort, because this is quite a feat for us, but we're going to get it done. So if you have something to bring to the table, shoot, bring it. We're open for you guys.
Awesome. Z, do you have any final thoughts do you want to share with us before we start closing it?
Well, to say much love, everybody. I just dropped my link in Nacheketa's chat for anybody interested in checking my channel out. Zetetic Warrior here on YouTube. Great chat, guys. I think there was a lot of people who probably found great value in this stream. I know I did. So much love. Hopefully many more. Streams in front of us. And yeah, about the final experiment, which I know was a huge topic of this stream. At this point, we're 2 months out. So, we're going to see this all go down. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. So, much love, everybody. Just stay true. And, just what comes to mind right now is, maybe I'll project a little bit of where my life is. There's a real world out there, everybody. Past the world they presented to us, past the world that this multimedia machine is just blasting you with, and this narrative, politics, history, science, and whatever they want to hit you with. There's a world out there, an objective world, a world that doesn't lie to you, okay? It's there. And everything you need to learn, it's there for you. So this is where I am in my life, and I would encourage anybody to embrace that part of them. There's nothing wrong with you as a being. You don't need their technology. You don't need their medicine. You don't need their agriculture. You don't need their culture. Humans just need each other. Once you have your community, your family, the world provides everything else. They're tricking you into a mindset and conditioning you into their system for their benefit. It's all bollocks. You don't need it. All right, much love, everybody. Thanks, Notch. Vlad, it was a pleasure to meet you.
Likewise, family. It was a pleasure to meet you as well, man. This was very fruitful. And family, I also dropped my link in the channel. And thanks for everything, y'all. And thank you, Natch. Thank you very much, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And we will continue on with this conversation in the coming future. And, we're in contact with each other. So I look forward to more talks. So take care, everybody. And thanks again for being here. And I'll see you guys all next time. Bye for now.
Peace, y'all.